chase looms over the horizon, and the closer we get, the more the landscape seems to shift. When the sun sets, the scene will transform. The slow pace of the summer days will subside, and a frenetic madness will set in. Good guys, bad guys, they are indistinguishable under artificial light. Like fireflies fluttering in unison with movements unpredictable, they will zip through the night for 400 miles to start the second half of the season. The pursued and the pursuant will compete for space and conflict over varied strategies. Those at the top can be daring.
Gordon getting aggressive. Wow, he just drove right around him.
Others will fight to defend.
The bump and run.
That is boys have at it racing right there.
While most just hope to escape.
Hang off. Good save there, good job.
As an unnerving excitement fills Chicagoland Speedway, all will suffer from sleeplessness until a victor emerges. The Summer Series sends you into the night next.
The sun will set shortly here at Chicagoland Speedway, where the conditions always keep teams on their toes. Our crew chief, Larry McReynolds, is here to break down the trends of this race. Larry?
Yeah, Lindsay, these are the trends of the patterns of the 9 Chicagoland races. First caution, average lap 40. Longest green flag run, average 78 laps. Guaranteed we'll see 1 to 2 green flag pit stops. Last caution flag, average lap 254, less than 15 laps to go. And the number of cars finishing on the lead lap, average 20. I bet you it'll be more than that tonight, Lindsay.
All right, Larry, got to keep your head together. That's the bottom line. 18 races down, 18 races to go. Let's go trackside right now for the command to start engines.
Race fans, please welcome from our world champion Stanley Cup winning Chicago Blackhawks defenseman Duncan Keith as he delivers the most famous words in racing.
Thanks, Chicago. Are we ready? Gentlemen, start your engines.
And there you see it, the drivers getting ready to go racing here at Chicagoland Speedway. When we come back, we'll join our guys in the booth who will call the race.
Chicago, one of the great sports towns in America. Tonight, the spotlight shines 50 miles south in Joliet, Illinois. NASCAR on TNT proudly presents Sprint Cup Series Racing from the Chicagoland Speedway. Hello and welcome again, everyone. Good to have you with us for NASCAR on TNT with Kyle Petty and Wally Dallenbach. I'm Adam Alexander. You know, NASCAR first came here to Chicagoland in 2001. It hasn't been that long ago, but things have changed a great deal since then, Wally.
Well, it really has. It's become a great racetrack, that's for one. There's a lot of lanes around this place. But the biggest thing these guys are going to be facing, I think, is they've practiced in the daylight, in the heat, and now they're going to be racing when the track is a lot cooler. Things are going to be different. The cars are going to be a lot different, so it's going to be pretty interesting. And don't forget, the tires are different from last year. They've got a spoiler, not a wing. So there's not a whole lot of setups they can go back off of from last year. So there's going to be a lot of guessing going on here, especially the first pit stop.
And there will be plenty to watch tonight, Kyle, because you look at the lineup, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Matt Kenseth, all starting outside the top 25. How difficult for them to get to the front?
There's a number of guys that are starting in the back that have to get to the front. And it's going to be hard because the first run here, as we heard in Larry's keys to the race and going green, were that there are a lot of green flag laps, and we could have the first stop could be a green flag stop. So when you got to run that first time and you're green flag and you're stuck back there in the pack and you're not making time, you can get lapped really quick here.
Here's the good news for the driver starting deep in the field. 3 of the last 9 races here have been won by a driver starting outside the top 10. Coors Light, the official beer of NASCAR, is the proud sponsor of the Coors Light Pole Award, given to the fastest qualifier in each NASCAR Sprint Cup race. This week's Coors Light Pole Award winner, Jamie McMurray. He now leads with 3 poles in 2010. And now we take a look at tonight's starting grid. Joining McMurray on the front row, Jimmie Johnson, still trying to get a victory here at Chicagoland. Row number 2, Tony Stewart. He has dominated the stat column here, including 2 victories. Row 3, great effort for Sam Hornish Jr. and Jeff Gordon, trying to pick up his second Chicagoland victory tonight. Teammates David Rudiman and Martin Truex Jr. on row 4. And another one of the surprise qualifiers here yesterday evening, Paul Menard. Montoya in row number 5 as well. He had a top 10 finish here last year. We talked about Tony Stewart and how good he has been at this racetrack. Let's hear from Smoke. Kyle Petty.
Tony Stewart, Kyle Petty here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Hey, man, looking at your record, now I guess I paid no attention to it, but you've won 2 races, 7 top 5s out of the 9 races here. You've begun to turn that corner the last couple of weeks at New Hampshire and at Daytona. Is this a great place, or is this a key place to get started on the chase?
Well, I mean, we're still a ways from the chase, but at the same time, I mean, we're not in a spot in the points that we can, like we were last year. We were real comfortable where we were at this time of the year. Had a comfortable enough lead. We could do what we needed to do, and if we had a bad night, it was okay. But we gotta still be cautious of what's going on behind us in the points. But at the same time, we need to start getting going on these bonus points, like you know, the 11 and 48 are here, and try to get our 10 bonus points when we can. So it's kind of a on top of the fence deal where we got to look forward and backwards at the same time right now.
All right, man. I appreciate you talking to us, and good luck tonight.
All right, thanks.
And now we take a look at our Burger King race analysis for tonight's event here at Chicagoland Speedway. 400 miles in length is this evening's event. 267 laps making up that distance. 45 miles an hour, the pit road speed. And our pit window, 54 to 58 laps, and there are no cars going to the rear. Now we get an opportunity to take one last trip down the pit lane and hear from our pit reporters. We begin with Phil Parsons.
Thank you, Adam. I talked to Kevin Harvick, our championship leaders, crew chief Gil Martin earlier today, and I said, Gil, because you have that 553-point cushion over 13th, can you gamble? He said, well, we try to do all we can do each and every week. If it gets down towards the end and we may be a lap or two short on making it on fuel, we may gamble in. But wait till Indy, as we heard Kevin Harvick say earlier in the pre-race show, when the engine department's going to give them a little bit extra to try to get ready for the chase. Now to Ralph Shaheen.
Phil, last week Clint Bowyer left enough points on the table that he could have put himself into the chase. He was in contention for a win. That would have been enough to move inside that top 12. Instead, a wrecked race car. He's now 49 points out, 14th in the point standings. He's frustrated over that and looking to make good on that here tonight. He says he's got a good race car, and he's hungry, Marty Snyder, to get those points and to get into that chase.
Well, Ralph, talking to Dave Rogers earlier today, said no racetrack penalizes you worse for a poor qualifying effort than Chicagoland. Unfortunately, his driver Kyle Busch starts 33rd today. He said they'll have to race their way to the front. And no matter what the result is, the one thing we can guarantee, it will be exciting to watch Kyle Busch come from the back to the front this evening, Matt.
Marty races at Daytona and Sonoma. They're unpredictable, so it didn't cause a lot of heartburn for Denny Hamlin when he had a disappointing finish. But New Hampshire, that was a different story. That was frustrating. He ran un-Hamlin-like there, hoping to get back on track here at Chicagoland. And Larry Mack tonight and for the rest month and a half, it's all about scoring wins. He's got a healthy lead over 13th. It's all about those bonus points as we get ever closer to the chase.
Yeah, Matt, with 8 races to go, unlike Tony Stewart, there's some drivers and teams at the front of the points that feel pretty good about making the chase. But one thing missing from some of them is a win with those bonus points. And I think Marty Snyder is with the crew chief for the man that could celebrate a win on his driver's 600th career start tonight.
I know Jeff Gordon would love to celebrate a win tonight. Steve, is this the point at which in the chase you guys are very comfortably in that you start gambling for wins?
Well, I mean, to be honest, DuPont Chevrolet's gambled for wins all year long. We've been very aggressive since the dropping the green flag in Daytona in February. We're not going to change it now. It's worked. We've had some DNFs. It's definitely bit us, but we've run well enough. We've overcome that, and now we're locked pretty solid in the top 5. It'll be nice when they officially say we're in the chase, but we're still going to go for the wins.
Bonus points, the focus for a lot of teams down here, Adam.
And Jeff Gordon, a driver to watch here tonight. One of the best at these mile-and-a-half tracks. Driver 24 starting in the 6th position. You see here just outside Sam Hornish Jr. Jamie McMurray, very good here in practice yesterday. He backed up that practice with a great run to the pole, and he will select the outside lane as we get set to go green. Jimmy Johnson alongside for the 19th time in 2010. The Sprint Cup Series getting ready to roll, and now we are green in the Midwest at Chicago.
48. Hung pretty tough. I really thought the one car would pull in the lead coming off the turn 2. But Jimmie Johnson's got a lot of grip down there, and he's making it work.
Jimmie Johnson using that inside lane to his advantage. He leads lap 1. Gordon and Kane side by side. Excuse me, McMurray side by side for 3rd.
You know, the funny part is all during practice we saw guys go to the top. Obviously, fresh tires right now on the bottom. Everybody kind of lined up on Jamie. Jamie's pulled back in 3rd here. Strong move up off 2.
David Rudiman able to drive underneath Sam Hornish Jr. That for 6th. Paul Menard looking as well. Talked about the success for Tony Stewart here at Chicagoland. It's his time of the year. Started 3rd tonight. He looks good in the early going.
And the Going Green show, you heard Jamie McMurray talk about, okay, Tony Stewart, well, I watched the footage of him, and he stayed right on that white line the whole time. When we did the qualifying show on Speed, or the practice show, Tony Stewart was right on that white line, and there he was. You saw him from the in-car camera rolling through the center of the corner to get under Jamie McMurray up off 4 on the white line.
And I think that's the key here. I mean, if you can keep your car on the bottom, 75% of the cars are going to be working the middle to the top of the racetrack as they get more and more laps on their tires. If your car can work down on the bottom, you're going to pass a lot of cars tonight.
And it's something that could change as the night goes on, Kyle.
Yeah, and we heard Jamie McMurray talk about, I need to get on that white line. We worked really hard on getting on the white line. We've run 4 laps. Jamie McMurray's not seen the white line yet, okay? He's been hung on that outside, but even when he had a clear racetrack, he didn't go the white line.
And since you've been on that show for 6 weeks, it's countdown to green in case you forgot to remember.
It's a pre-race.
Green show.
Yeah, it's a pre-race. It's a pre-race.
The good news is we're green now. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Let's don't go through this again. I don't know who's in the back of the pack either, okay? I'm sorry.
Matt on more with Jamie McMurray.
And in that green show, that countdown to something show, Jamie McMurray talked about he would be running on the bottom. And guys, you're right. He has moved up, and he joked afterward. He goes, you know what? I probably jinxed myself. I'll probably be up top most of the night. He said the car is just way too tight now, much tighter than he expected. That's why he's moved a lane up.
And you know, we heard and when they interviewed Kevin Harvick, he talked about running that race last night and being able to make some adjustments for the day to try to figure out where his car was, because he liked where his car ended last night. He thought the racetrack changed, so he was going to adjust accordingly. As we see the 14 drive under the 16 car of Greg Biffle on the bottom of the racetrack. And you know, eventually Tony will move around, but right now, this is where Tony left off.
Well, you'll hear guys, and I was talking to Jimmie Johnson yesterday about it. He liked his car because he said, you know the feeling when you get, he said, the car's getting into the track. There's a big difference when you have a car that goes around racetrack, especially a 1.5 miles. It almost feels like your tires are digging into the asphalt. He felt his car was that way. Stewart thinks his car is that way. And that gives you the opportunity. You can run the bottom if your car is gripping really, really good. If it's not, you can't stay on the bottom, because normally the car wants to get tight, especially getting up off the corner.
Tony's car really rolls through the center of the corner good. And this is, you know, again, we heard Kevin Harvick in the beginning say, this is a very round place to run. Even though it looks like it's got a straightaway, it's a round racetrack. You're constantly turning, you're constantly moving. If your car can roll into the corner, float into the corner, and roll free through the center, you can get to the gas earlier and make the straightaways a lot longer, maybe 5 or 6 car lengths longer, which in turn adds to that straightaway speed, obviously.
Tony Stewart looks good here early. Started 3rd, running 2nd. Everyone chasing Jimmie Johnson. He's led the first 8 laps at Chicagoland.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing from Chicago on TNT is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%. Call Geico at 1-800-947-AUTO or visit us at geico.com. By Frost Brewed Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. By the all-new 2011 Super Duty, built for tough. By McDonald's, I'm loving it. And by AT&T, rethink possible.
NASCAR.com Track Pass Race View Pit Command and Scanner. The most access to your favorite drivers. Live, free for Chicago. Get live in-car audio, multiple camera angles, and the most race stats anywhere online. It's commercial free all race long. Presented by the all-new 2011 Super Duty. Only on NASCAR.com. Go to NASCAR.com/free Chicago. Things have not changed since we went to break. Jimmie Johnson continues to be the race leader. Tony Stewart right behind him, 0.6 of a second the difference right now. And Greg Biffle in third, Phil.
Yeah, Adam, he just reported into his crew chief, Greg Orrin, just a couple minutes ago that the car is a little bit tight through the center of the corner. As a matter of fact, has a little bit of front tire chatter through the center, and then he's a little bit free up off the corner. That's what Greg Biffle's fighting right now.
Yeah, and Biffle thought he had a pretty good car. He was pretty happy after the practice sessions with this thing, and it's a pretty strong run for the Ford guys. They haven't really done a whole lot this year, but you've got one sitting in third right now and 7th, 8th, and 9th with Menard, Edwards, and Kasey Kahne.
Kahne started 12th and has worked his way to 8th. So far, so good, Larry.
Yeah, one thing that's been going on in the Ford camp throughout the entire 2010 season is this FR9 engine package. Makes a little more horsepower, has a much lower center of gravity, actually cools a lot better, which lets them run a lot more tape. What I was told this week is for the rest of 2010, with the exception of Bristol and Watkins Glen, all of the major Ford teams from Richard Petty Motorsports, Roush Fenway, and the Wood Brothers 21 will be running the Ford FR9 engine full time.
Hey, and why not? I can understand Watkins Glen, but why Bristol, Larry?
Well, I think they just wanted to handpick some, Wally, with that many teams. That's one thing that put them behind, was all of a sudden Richard Petty Motorsports was added, that added 4 teams. I just think it gives them a little bit of a breather. And you and I both know you don't give up horsepower anywhere, but if there's a place you could give it up, Bristol would be the place.
Yep.
Talk about Fords and how well they are running. Here's a couple of those that Wally mentioned inside the top 10. Paul Menard is 7th. Right behind him, Carl Edwards, and Kasey Kahne joining this mix. He's behind the wheel of a Ford as well.
Yeah, Carl looks like his car is a little bit loose. Through 3 and 4 that time, it looked like it was a little bit loose. I don't know what he's telling the team, but watch him as he goes down into turn 1. And normally, when a guy's tugging on the wheel to the right, not handling all that great. When you see a guy go through the corner and his right hand is pretty steady, you know he's got a really good handling car. So he's struggling a little bit, but he's still pretty fast.
And it's interesting. He run the bottom of the racetrack through 1 and 2, and the top of the racetrack. But I think he's just running wherever the 98 is not, because the 98 was up, he was down. That corner, the 98 was down, he was up.
But it may be that patch over there in 3 and 4. It's almost a bump, could be giving him some trouble. So he may be running high in 3 and 4 just to stay out of that patch.
We mentioned Kasey Kahne right behind these guys. He started 12th, and Ralph right now running in the 9th position.
Yeah, and he's searching, Adam, and not just for traction on the racetrack. He's searching for words to try to describe what he's feeling. He says the rear end of the car is a little bit free and moving around on him a little bit as he comes off the corners. It's the front end that he's having a harder time to describing. He says it's not exactly chattering, but it's bouncing around up front. And he just can't come to grips with exactly what it's doing to describe it to his crew.
Yeah, and you know, Ralphie, that makes it even worse when you're in traffic. It's hard to race around somebody when the front end's doing something like that, because it just magnifies the problem.
Yeah, and he didn't even try to race the 56. The 56 running down from a half a straightaway or 8 or 10 car lengths behind, he just pulled over and let him go down the front stretch.
Those drivers battling for 10th. Jimmie Johnson enjoying a Saturday evening drive in Chicago. He's leading.
You're watching NASCAR on TNT.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series rolling through Chicagoland this weekend. Jimmie Johnson having no problems in the early going. He's led every lap, 27 of 267 complete here this evening. Let's take an inside look at what's happening now in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, brought to you by Sprint and Evo 4G, America's first 4G phone. Biggest mover tonight, Regan Smith, up 10 positions from where he started. And Tony Stewart recorded the top speed, more than 177 miles per hour. For more NASCAR stats and live in-car audio, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile and the new Evo, only from Sprint at sprint.com/speed.
Just watching some of these guys, I think, you know, the guys that have hit it right are probably pretty happy, but I think there's some guys that have not hit it right and would like to see that yellow come out so they can get in and adjust, because, again, what we talked about early, it's a crapshoot on setups, and some of these guys look like they're slipping back pretty hard.
Jeff Gordon's lost a couple of positions, 6th to 8th, Marty.
Yeah, and they thought this would be the best part of the run for them. When I talked to Steve Letarte this morning, he said the biggest problem with our setup, it's a little slow to start off with, but from the middle of the run on, we're one of the faster cars. I think they're a little bit surprised by this. Gordon said his biggest problem, entry. The car is loose, just can't get back to the gas like he would like.
Not been a fun time in recent weeks for Martin Truex Jr. Started 8th here tonight, has worked his way to 6th, and overall the Michael Waltrip camp has been impressive tonight. Right in front of him, his teammate David Rudiman.
And you know what the problem with some of this is, Kyle, is that if you've got a good car hooked up like Jimmie Johnson, he's already lapping guys. And you got guys like Kurt Busch and Kenseth and Kyle Busch are back there. They want a caution.
And that's what we said in the opening was, if you qualified bad, this run can be a long green flag run. And if somebody checks out like Jimmy is, you get down early.
We gave you the numbers on Truex. Let's get his story with Ralph Shaheen.
Adam, they just said over the radio 20 more laps before they're ready to pit if this thing stays green. And that's exactly what Larry McReynolds was talking about earlier today when he gave his keys to the race and the countdown to green in the pre-race. He said this thing tends to stay green long, and Martin told me earlier this afternoon the better this car gets, the longer this race goes green. It's just a tick tight right now, but he's very happy with it. If this thing stays green for a long run at the end of the race, watch out. Martin Truex could have a fast race car.
20th, 21st, and 22nd on track right here. Kevin Harvick leading that parade. Yeah, he's doing what he always does, slowly working to the front, Wally.
But I think these guys are the guys that are kind of in trouble, and they're searching right now for whatever grip they can get, because not in their mirror, not too far behind him is Jimmie Johnson. He's coming, so these guys are all over. Harvick has changed his line, 2 or 3 times in the last 5 laps.
The leaders in lap traffic, McMurray, the middle car, going around Travis Kvapil. Kvapil a lap down, and right behind him, Greg Biffle trying to gain that position. He's in 4th right now.
You can pick up the throttle just gently and just kind of pull a little bit and then go to it hard. And look how much he gained, or look how much he pulled on the 16 right there, because the 16 was up under the car of Travis Kvapil. The 56 car, we just talked about Truex. The 56 car and the 24 have basically changed positions on the racetrack. One's gone from 8th to 6th. The other one's gone from 6th to 8th. But the Truex car is working. He rolls in the corner. You see him right up next to the wall. He's running as higher than anybody. Already using the white. Picks up the throttle quick and running down his teammate David Rudiman right now. Now the problem is when your car works up there and that racetrack gets old, it's hard to keep it working up there. Yeah. As long as there's grip and there's a little bit of white up there early on. But I think we heard Tony, a couple of guys in the pre-race, I'm not sure who it was, say they're going to be all the way up next to the wall. And when they get all the way up there, now you got to make your car work a little bit better.
David Rudiman able to pick off Greg Biffle. The double zero now in the 4th position, but Biffle comes right back on the inside using Max Pappas, the lap car, as a pick. And the positions reverse once again.
I think it's double zero had a better run getting off of that corner because he had the high line. And Biffle's got to almost get a car length and a half in front of him on the exit of 2 in order to slide up. But it looks like those guys on the top have got the momentum. He's going to lose a couple spots right there. The Truex car looks like it's pretty good. It looks like it's getting better.
So David Rudiman now has put himself in the 4th position. Truex right behind him. Jimmie Johnson continues to work lap traffic. He leads 37 laps in at Chicago. Caution out at Chicago, and the leaders are on pit road. To Phil Parsons.
David Rudiman comes in the pits running 4th. They're going to take a pound out of the right front. His car is just a little bit too tight through the center, Ralph.
The 56, Martin Truex a little tight. 4 tires and fuel and an air pressure adjustment, Marty.
Jeff Gordon, bottom of your screen, says the car front end turns on a dime, but the back end way loose, down 2 rounds on the track bar, Matt.
Leader Jimmie Johnson, the track really changed over that run. Chassis adjustment, the car was snug in the center, and it started to get more and more free on exit.
Wally said these drivers wanted a caution to get to pit road. They were able to get it. Jimmy Johnson holds serve. And how about Martin Truex Jr. jumping 3 positions on pit road? Impressive work for his race team. First caution of the night, David Strimmy hit the wall. More from Chicago next.
I'm not going to say it.
42 of 267 laps completed Chicagoland. Our first caution of the night, David Strimmy popped the wall. Tough break for the driver out of South Bend, Indiana, not too far from home, and you see it top of your screen. Strimmy already riding the rim as he headed into the corner. He was the last car on the lead lap. Bobby Labonte got the free pass under this caution, and you see Martin Truex Jr. lining up in the outside lane. Good pit work by his team.
Really good pit. You see, he basically shaved a second off of Jimmy Johnson on the total time on pit road. 1 second is 3 spots. But hey, Matt, somebody who was a big loser on that pit stop was the 14 car. What happened down there to Tony?
Absolutely. When you look at the time, you can definitely see loss of spots. What happened was Mike Castro, the jack man, when they ran around to the right side of the car, he slid the jack under to hit the jack post. The problem is the seam between the asphalt and the concrete hooked the wheels, and the wheels got stuck, and he had to give it like 3 pushes to get the jack under the car to jack it up. That's what cost them the time and those positions on pit road.
You see what a couple of seconds make a difference either way on pit lane.
Marcos Ambrose, another driver who had to pay a penalty under this caution when he came down pit road. Lug nuts missing. He had to come back in. He will restart 33rd. Up front, Johnson and Truex. We get the restart as we put lap 43 on the board.
This will be interesting to see how this plays out, because you had the 48 running right on the bottom, or the middle to the bottom, and Truex running all the way at the top of the racetrack for that first leg of that long run.
Nice battle here for 4. David Rudiman, who's been strong early inside of Greg Biffle. And McMurray racy on the restart here, Wally.
Yeah, Jamie's right down on the bottom, right on the bumper of Jimmy Johnson. Doesn't quite have enough momentum to get beside him. And the 55 car would be, see what, he really came on strong after about 10 or 15 laps.
There you see Truex riding 3rd. And now on board with McMurray. And I'm out 3 wide. Montoya, Edwards, and Gordon for position.
I think Jeff thought a little bit better of that driving off down into turn 1 with that crowd making it 3 wide right there. But you see AJ right in there, Allmendinger right behind him. Gets around Jeff on the outside where Jeff was hung on the bottom, on the very, very bottom.
46 laps in tonight. Still plenty of time to get your picks in for the TNT $1 Million Fan Challenge. You pick the top 10 finishers in tonight's race in the correct order. You could win up to $1 million. All you need to do is go to NASCAR.com/TNT-million. Well, this is really good from 7th on back. Montoya, Allmendinger, and Gordon. And there's that RCR bunch waiting in the weeds. Burton and Boyer. Gordon able to get the position.
Jeff's car really used, he drove on down in the corner, and the thing rotated in the middle, and he drove under the 43 and the 42 at the same time, which is a pretty strong right there. So whatever adjustment they made appears to have helped. Marty?
Yeah, Jeff Gordon very happy with the race car, the way it turned on the front end. The back end, though, was way too loose for him. So Steve Letarte said, you know what? Let's take a big swing in it. 2 rounds down on that track bar. And KP and Wally, this is the time of the race to do something like that, isn't it? Take a big swing at it, just see if it works, and maybe you can do that later in the race as well.
It appears to have helped his entrance.
Yeah.
I mean, he is getting in the corner, especially getting into turn 3, which is a fairly difficult corner to get into. He can drive it down in there, hook it on the bottom, and seems to rotate good through the center. He was a little loose while Marty was talking there. I know he said maybe my car was a little loose. He was a little loose. He walked it up off turn 2 over here on the previous lap.
Jeff Burton able to drive inside of A.J. Allmendinger, get the 8th position. You're riding with Burton here. That's Allmendinger behind him, and the bright yellow car going to the inside of the 43, Clint Boyer. You're a Kevin Harvick fan and wondering where the third RCR team car is running right now. Harvick is 26th after starting back outside the top 25 at the beginning of the day. And Tony Stewart's car must be pretty good. He restarted 17th and already knocking on the door of the top 10.
Yeah, and he's still on the bottom of the racetrack. But you see these guys that run the high side. You see AJ up here on the high side. You see Tony tucks in under right here in the middle of the racetrack. The 33 gets a good roll through the middle, but this momentum on the high side carries him down the straightaway.
Look at Stewart getting aggressive in the middle.
Yeah, well, he knows he's got good tires right here, and these guys are holding him up a little bit. Because, I mean, when they drop the green flag, those first 8 or 10 laps, right, 8 or 9 laps of the race, he made some time. And you see, just like Jeff Gordon's car, he can drive into the middle. Tony lets the thing slide up, takes the position away. Even though AJ will be able to close back in on him because of that momentum, Tony's got the position.
But you kind of expect it from the 14 because he was such a good car to begin with. They had a little hiccup in the pits, but the 14 car is strong, so you kind of expect him to get back up there. It's just when he gets a little bit closer, when he gets about to 6, 7, it's going to get a little bit tougher for him.
It gets a lot tougher. It's the closer you get to the sharp end of the stick, the harder it gets to pass each other. And you saw right there, the 99 car, as Jeff drove up on him, stuck his hand out the window and gave Jeff the position getting into turn 3. These guys, the funny thing about racing like this, especially this time in the race, 50 some odd laps into the race, is if you end up racing a guy side by side for 3 or 4 laps, you lose a lot of time. And Jeff, and you look at these guys, they're smart enough to know, I don't want to lose time to the leader or those guys behind me catch up.
Teammates racing for third. That's Truex in the Napa 56. Right behind him in the Tums 00 would be David Rudiman. These two cars have been very strong since the beginning. Rudiman started 7th and has stayed inside the top 10, and they got to be happy with the way they're running tonight, Phil.
They are, Adam. He actually worked his way up to the 4th position before the caution flag came out. He's reported to his crew chief, Rodney Childers, that the car is really, really tight now, way tighter than it was before, and they adjusted air out of the right front tire to try to free the car up a little bit. Way, way tighter right now for David Rudiman.
But Rudiman is really, he was 4th on that first run, he's 4th right now. He's really kind of maintained or stayed right there with Truex. And I thought Truex is running in the middle of the racetrack now to the bottom, where that first run Truex was up in the white stuff. So whatever adjustment they've made, he's had to move to a different place on the racetrack to make his car work.
And here's going to be the key. As this night continues and the sun continues to go down, how many of these guys that are inside the top 10 right now, is you see the sun peeking over the wall in turns 3 and 4. How many of these drivers inside the top 10 are going to be able to stay there? Because you got to stay in front of the track.
Yeah, this is where the communication between the driver and the crew chief and the team is going to be so important. And listening to the crew chief say, the driver's got to say, I'm loose here, I'm tight here, whatever. You see these guys start down the backstretch, and I know this doesn't sound like a lot, but when you turn in here at 170 or 80 miles an hour, boom, and there's the sun right in you, you don't see anything for 100 yards or so in there. It's like somebody being in a dark room and flashing a light or flashing a camera in your eyes for a minute. There's a dot there. But this is where the communication factor is going to be so big. These guys have to stay up with the racetrack now to understand what adjustments they need to make in the future.
Fans want more TNT coverage? The Coca-Cola in-car camera on Race Buddy lets you ride shotgun with Coca-Cola racing family drivers. Check out the Coca-Cola in-car camera on NASCAR.com's Race Buddy now.
And going back to what Kyle was talking about, you need to make big swings right now because the track is changing, like you said. It's one of those deals where you can't, if your car feels pretty good and you want to make a change, you almost have to go a little bit too far. You have to go further because the track is going to change so much. And McMurray here is making up some ground on the 48.
We mentioned on that restart how aggressive he was on the back bumper. He was a half a second back, and now you see him closing once again. Two different lines for these drivers in 3 and 4 there, too.
Yeah, 2 different lines. And you hear guys talk about it all the time. And the king and those guys, you said, you got to pass people where they ain't. You see the 48 move up in front of him right now because the 48's like, and his spotter's telling him, Jamie's running high. You might want to try that groove to see where he's at because he's closing on you. He's making some time. Where Jimmy has been predominantly from the middle of the racetrack to the bottom of the racetrack and made time on everybody he's raced against. Jamie's up there running just a touch lower, maybe a half a car lane lower than what the 56 car was running that first line, the first run.
This is the most laps Jimmie Johnson's led in his career to start a race. Impressive. He's led all of them so far tonight. Back at Chicagoland Speedway, and you still have time to get your picks in for the $1 Million Fan Challenge. You can win up to $1 million, and I'm guessing Jimmie Johnson is going to be in everyone's top 10. He looks good in the early portion of this race. Let's go through the field. Leading us off, Matt Yoakum.
Tons of motivation tonight for Jimmie Johnson and Chad Canals with the 48 team. 104 racetracks. They've never scored a cup victory here at Chicago. Yarding the competition now, he says the car much better rolling through the center and a lot better on exit. But it definitely was a handful early on racing the one of Jimmy McMurray, who now says his car has gone to the tight side. He's trying to change up his line to help the balance of his race car, but he has lost a little bit of distance to Johnson, Ralph.
Well, Martin Truex is running in third right now in car 56. He was really good in that first run. Right now, he's struggling a little bit in turns 3 and 4. Problem is, he can't get the gas all the way down as he's working his way to turns 3 and 4, Phil.
Ralph, remember we talked about the 00 of David Rudin being a little bit too tight, even tighter than he was the first run. He has the 5th best average finish in the last 10 races to move up to 17th in points. Now, as we go back to the next guy, the 16 of Greg Biffle, he's reporting that he's pushing the right front tire off the car. You see him move up to the top of the racetrack. Comes in here 10th in points. Extremely optimistic about his chances, Marty, for a great run tonight.
Well, Phil, Jeff Gordon driving a brand new race car this weekend. The way they want to head to build race cars for the chase. He loves the way the front end turns, and he just radioed to Steve Letarte. You're never going to hear me say this again. We have way too much front downforce on this car. I can't run the bottom. Car's way too loose on exit. Matt?
Jason Hedlaski, Carl Edwards spotter, has been telling him the different lines that Jimmie Johnson and Jimmy McMurray have been running. Right now, he's soldiering on back in 7th. His car better on this run than the first. The track bar adjustment has helped, but it's still a tick tight on entry. Meanwhile, Tony Stewart making his way back up to the lead area of the race, currently in 8th. What they're going to do on their next stop so they don't have an issue again on pit road, they're going to change the tape on pit road route and have Stewart pit closer to the wall on their next stop.
Well, Matt, you always got to find a way to keep the guys behind you, and that's what Juan Pablo Montoya is trying to do right now. His car is a little too tight, so the crew is working with him on the air, not the air pressure in the tires, but the air around him, teaching him how to use the air to keep the air off of the guy behind him to make it tougher for the car behind him to get around him. The car behind him right now, closing in, is Clint Boyer in the number 33. He just moved himself inside the top 10. Early on, Marty, that car was loose on throttle. Now it's gotten tight.
Well, for Jeff Burton, they've kind of gone backwards with his 31 car. He did take off pretty quick on the initial run, loose the last run. What they did is it took out a quarter pound of air pressure from all the tires, trying to give him more overall grip. It didn't work. Burton said the car much worse. In fact, it made it looser. Larry?
Yeah, quite a bit of parity with Richard Petty Motorsports right now here earlier in the race. Casey Kane in the 9 is in 11th. Paul Menard in the 98 is 13th. A.J. Allmendinger in the 43 is 14th. And Elliott Sadler, who led some laps at Daytona in that 19 car, 16th. A lot happening in the 19 count this week. A little bit of a crew chief change. Wally Rogers out. Todd Parrott moved over from Roush Fenway to look after this car. Todd and Elliott Sadler won races together at Robert Yates Racing, but the biggest thing, it was reported this week, Elliott Sadler will not be returning to Richard Petty Motorsports in 2011, Adam.
And Larry, plenty of motivation for them tonight. The Children's Miracle Network on his car. If Elliott wins, he gets $1 million for the Children's Miracle Network. Now, here's an interesting group of cars. Dale Earnhardt Jr. running in the 22nd position. Sam Hornish Jr., Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick. We talked about drivers starting deep in the field, and Kyle, these guys still have some work to do.
Yeah, and this is really a little bit surprising because these guys started deep in the field. They caught a caution. They were able to go in and make an adjustment, and guess what? They're still deep in the field. They're not making the progress. We saw Tony Stewart. These guys are 22nd, 23rd, right along through there. We saw Tony Stewart start 17th, and he's worked his way back up to 8th right now. These guys can't move. Whatever adjustment they made was not a big enough swing at it, was not the right thing.
Yeah.
So
and the 2-car there, too, he's been stuck back there the whole race. He hasn't made any ground up.
And this is incredibly surprising for the 2 because these guys have been hot over the last month and a half. Ever since we ran the All-Star race, these guys have been on a streak. Everywhere they go, they're a leader. They're a top 5 car. So these guys made adjustments and they've worked on it, but they've not made any progress.
But if this track does cool down, things can still come these guys' way if it cools down.
The racetrack comes to them instead of them having to go to the racetrack. And we saw that happen with Harvick over at Charlotte. Wasn't even in a race the first part of the race when the sun was out. As soon as it got cloudy or as soon as the sun went down, he goes to the front and has another great top 5 run.
It has been his motto all season long, talking about Harvick being able to drive through the field. If they get to the front, they're likely going to be racing with Jimmie Johnson. He's had no issues tonight, and he continues to lead.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing from Chicago on TNT is brought to you by Progressive, making it easier to buy car insurance. By Coca-Cola, open a Coke and enjoy the race. By Sprint, proud sponsor of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. By Burger King, who reminds you to have it your way. And by Toyota.
50 miles south of downtown Chicago, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing for the 19th time in 2010. Jimmie Johnson, the race leader, and the man moving behind him, Juan Pablo Montoya. While we were at break, he was able to drive around Tony Stewart and go to the 8th position, and now he's up to 7th as he squeezes around Greg Biffle.
Yeah, I mean, and he went by the 14 car just a lap ago and left him. So he's found something on the racetrack that is working for him.
82 of 267 laps complete, and Larry, I'm sure these crew chiefs starting to think about strategy. What are you looking at?
Well, I think they're mainly starting to think about changes. Now, I looked at the weather today, and it's supposed to cool down about 15 degrees from the start of this 400-mile race to the end. Now, this is the radiator opening where air flows through here to get to the radiator to cool the fins where the water flows through the radiator. Now, as the ambient temperature cools down, you don't need as much airflow through here. So what these guys may do is add tape to this. Now, one thing you can do is add tape just like this. What that will do, that helps the straightaway speed. It puts less airflow through this area, but the biggest thing it'll help it do, it helps the front downforce, the pressure on the nose of the car. Now, the reason I did it here on the left side and left side only, this is the corner you want to plant. If you get this corner here nailed down, it really helps that car to turn through these 18 degrees of banking.
Thank you, Larry. And that splitter, a big subject of conversation here during the practice sessions yesterday as teams tried to get their cars dialed in. And as rough as this racetrack has gotten, it's pretty easy to get that splitter roughed up because you do bounce around quite a bit here.
And they've got them right down on the racetrack. You can especially see it when they go through the corners. They're basically dragging through the corners.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. jumped into the top 12 in points with that 4th place finish last week at Daytona. Not been great for him here tonight. He's 22nd, trying to get around Ryan Newman.
And he's trying a lot of places on the racetrack. You see Newman, and you see the 88, and you see the 29 of Kevin Harvick. These guys have kind of been hung together with magnets or whatever ever since they dropped the green flag.
And you saw the 39 there. When the 88 was on the high side, Newman's car looks pretty loose. He was down there in the middle of 1 and 2. And see it again? Yeah. That car is loose right there. So the 39 is going to be, he's going to be slipping back. He's wanting some grip there. But Junior, you look on the steering wheel, he's fairly comfortable. He's got the, he's not jacking with the wheel. If you remember how Carl Edwards was really going way to the right, to the left, he's tugging on it, but he's not working it. The car is working fairly good for Junior right there.
And you hear him pick up the throttle, and it goes pretty good. Phil?
Yeah, Dale Jr. was reporting that his car is really bad right now. He said it's hopping and popping all over the track. He said it's really, really loose up off the corner, is what he's told Lance McGrew.
Well, it sure doesn't look it
Yeah.
by the steering wheel. I mean, he hasn't turned that wheel to the right once.
Yeah, by the steering wheel and by the throttle. You can hear the throttle there. He feathers back into it pretty good and seems to be in the gas pretty hard coming up, Paul.
Jimmie Johnson's led every lap tonight, 86 complete. We'll see his drivers on pit road for green flag stops when we return. Green flag pit stops underway at Chicago. Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch have all been on the pit lane. Ryan Newman making his stop now. You see Casey Kane has been in, and David Rudiman in as well, Phil.
David Rudiman comes in from the 4th position. He said the car is better now, the balance is better. Just want to take a little bit of air out of both front tires for the 00, Matt.
And the 14 of Tony Stewart pulls into his box. Watch, he'll pull a little closer to the wall to help the Jackman out on this stop. Chassis adjustment for Stewart. The car was just getting tighter and tighter as the run wore on. They're waiting for about another 40 minutes. When that sun goes down, Ralph, the track will change.
It's going to be just a small air pressure adjustment for the 56 of Martin Truex, a half pound out of the left rear. He was having trouble getting the gas to the ground, and so he's coming out of 3 and 4. He talked about it with his crew chief, Pat Twyson. They finally made a decision. That's what they decided to do. Matt, 4 tires and fuel, he's away.
Denny Hamlin making his pit stop, and here's Jimmie Johnson. The last time around, he was going to come down pit lane, but he missed pit road. He will make his stop at lap 94. Gordon coming in as well. Let's go to Marty Snyder.
Jeff Gordon said, I don't want a balance change. I just want a little bit more rear grip. They're going to go down on the track bar once again. 1 full round for Jeff Gordon trying to get that rear grip. Matt.
One, and McMurray tried staying out to lead a lap. Both he and the 48 of Johnson on pit road. The 48 was edgy at the beginning of that run. Chassis adjustment already completed. Meanwhile, the 1 and McMurray, he said his car was just way too tight on that run.
Right around lap 90 when this cycle of stops began.
And the 1's your leader because the 48 missed pit road. Let's see if we can see the 48 when he comes down. He misses it fairly dramatic. He is all but sideways here. Here he is trying to get down pit road on his first attempt. As he comes around, look at this thing.
Rear brake, way too much rear brake.
So much rear brake. When he jumped on that thing, he was sideways. He has to go again. So everything that he had over the 1 car, he lost right there. And when they come down pit road, now as it cycles through, the 1 car becomes your leader.
And see, and when you're turning like that, you've got too much rear brake. That's exactly what happens. The car just jumps sideways.
And we saw it last week at Daytona. Those guys run their brakes, and when they started down pit road, they would almost adjust their brakes so they could get on pit road and then readjust their brakes while on the racetrack. As he started down, it's hard to explain to somebody with a road car how drastic this is and how much you can adjust the way a car drives just by turning that knob and setting the front end and setting the weight of the car on the front tires, or having those rears lock up, just like on a bicycle when you slam on the brakes on a bicycle when you were a kid and the rear would slide out from under you. That's what that feels like.
And that cost Jimmy, that right there cost him about 6 or 7 seconds on the racetrack. That one little miscue.
The lead for Jimmie Johnson was 2.2 seconds prior to him missing pit road. He rides 3rd right now. Jamie McMurray is the race leader. You're watching NASCAR on TNT. Jamie McMurray continues to lead the LifeLock.com 400 at Chicago, and while we were away, he put Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch 1 lap down.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Harvick's car is wicked loose right now. That thing is all over the racetrack.
Back in the 6th position, Carl Edwards. He has looked good here this evening, and with that, we bring you tonight's Aflac Trivia Question. Aflac Insurance can help cover out-of-pocket expenses that major medical insurance does not. Now the question, the winning driver of each Sprint Cup Series race receives 185 points. In what other ways can a driver receive points?
You want the answer now?
No, we don't want the answer now. Where's that tape Larry was working with down there at the torque car earlier?
I thought this was a true and false question.
Well, we know multiple choice is the only thing that works for Kyle.
Yes.
Talked about the fact that Jamie McMurray was able to go around both Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick. You see these two on track running 27th and 28th.
I'm telling you, man, that 29 car is as bad as it gets when you look at a race car on a mile-and-a-half racetrack being loose.
Here's how you get extra points. If 185 for winning, you get extra points for driving your butt off like Kevin Harvick is doing right now, because he is up on the wheel left and right all over that steering wheel.
What's he saying about it, Phil?
Adam, he's saying 3 words: sideways, sideways, sideways. That's all Kevin Harvick has said, Ralph.
Well, Kurt Busch said, I want a major change. This thing is really loose. So they did wedge, track bar, air pressure adjustment, 4 tires and fuel. And now, guys, he says it's even more loose.
Martin Truex Jr. running good tonight in second. You see him in and around those 2 cars we just talked about. And right behind Truex, Jimmy Johnson. That would be the battle for third.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Johnson right now is the fastest car on the track. And so they're making the adjustments the right way. He lost a lot of ground, but right now to the leader, he's only 2.5 seconds back. And after that pit stop, he was over 4 seconds. So he's making up some ground on these guys.
Hard to believe Johnson's riding third after missing pit road on a cycle of green flag pit stops. A testimony to how good the car was prior to that. And here he goes to the inside of Truex for the runner-up position.
And you know, it's funny, we've seen some mistakes from these guys that we don't normally see from the 48 team. You know, mistakes on pit lane and things like that. They're obviously the performance on the racetrack is still been great, but just a slight mistake like that. Fortunately, it happened early in the race, you know, and not late in the race.
Tomorrow afternoon, TBS, the Atlanta Braves and New York Mets doing battle in the National League East. You can see it at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Watch the 43 car here. It gets a little bit up, a little bit, boom, just a little in the wall. And you know what? Actually, there's been a lot of cars like that. I saw a little chink in the armor in the 16 car. And a couple other cars I've seen just some scrapes on the right rear.
Allmendinger looked good early tonight, was running inside the top 10. He's right now in the 16th position. And the Fords, who at one time had 4 cars inside the top 10, now have 2. Carl Edwards leading that brigade.
Yeah, Biffle's kind of slipped back a little bit. He's sitting back in the 10th spot right now.
Showed you Martin Truex Jr. racing a moment ago with Jimmy Johnson for second. Just behind those guys, the battle for fourth. You see in the high lane there, David Rudiman, and right behind him, Jeff Gordon. The back portion of the top 5.
Yeah, watch 29. 29's not even racing for the lucky dog at this point. Those leaders are just knocking, and you know they're so hooked up right now, and they're putting cars a lap down. A new car's going a lap down almost every lap.
24 cars on the lead lap right now.
And this is, you know, you talk about how competitive Sprint Cup racing is. That's your last week's winner. That 29 car is your last week's winner, and led down there and ran up front.
And your points leader.
Yeah, and your points leader, and dominated. And here he is, a lap down, you know, 100 laps into the race and struggling. And that's how competitive this is. You can be on top of the world one day, 1 week in this sport, and the next week they don't even talk about you.
Very, very humbling business.
Very humbling.
It doesn't take long. Jamie McMurray started on the pole tonight. It took him until lap 93 before he took the lead, but he's out front now. The sun is setting in Joliet, Illinois. 117 laps complete, and now we answer our Aflac trivia question. The winning driver of each Sprint Cup race receives 185 points. In what other ways can a driver earn points?
Delivering brownies to the booth.
Yes. Yeah. Those are brownie points. Yeah. That would be brownie points. That's a good point.
And the answer tonight, a driver earns 5 points for leading a lap and 5 more points for leading the most laps. A total of 195 points for the winner at the end of the night if they can lead the most laps.
For the winner.
For the winner, because they would have obviously led a lap.
I'm not saying anything.
That's good. They're battling for fourth on track. What about Truex, Ralph?
Well, you know, he was struggling to get the car to work in turns 3 and 4. He said, if I could get through 3 and 4, I'd be as good as anybody. Well, shortly after that, Jimmie Johnson passed him. And Wally, Kyle, as you know, sometimes it's good to run behind a guy. Because as soon as he got behind him, he started running Jimmy's line. He started running a lot better.
He's right behind the 24 car. I mean, right there, I think Jeff would probably, I would lay over and let him go. I'm not sure what they did on the last pit stop for the 24 car, but he's been sliding backwards. I'm not sure they went in the right direction. Marty, is he happy with the changes? Or?
Yeah, he's happy. He was trying to pass Truex there, actually, and they've been getting better, Wally. They went down on the track bar again. Now that's 3 rounds down today on the track bar for Jeff Gordon, so it's getting better. And the one thing Jeff has learned, as the sun has started setting, he said at nighttime, I think we're going to be a little bit better. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind as well, guys. This track will change as we go throughout this race drastically.
Another group hoping that their fate will change once the sun goes down. Those drivers in the Joe Gibbs Racing Camp. Denny Hamlin carrying the flag right now. The man who won twice in early June, 13th. You see Logano in the 20th position. And Kyle Busch not too far from going a lap down in 22nd. It has not been their night.
But, you know, this year has been a year of streaks. Almost. We started out, and it was the 24 and the 48 dominated the first 7 or 8 races when you look at how they ran on the racetrack. And then all of a sudden, we go from the wing to the spoiler, and it's the Gibbs cars. But little by little, they disappear. And when I say disappear, they don't disappear. They lose that edge that they have for whatever reason.
With the nose, use your momentum.
You know, but like you said, one race makes a difference. I mean, you think you've got the stuff figured out, and then you show up like Harvick does this weekend. And I know restrictor plate's a different deal, but still, you know, those guys have been running good all year, and all of a sudden they're out to lunch tonight.
Yeah, and you see the 48 and the 48 never went anywhere, even though, you know, like I said, reports of his demise were greatly exaggerated because he fell all the way back to 7th in points. But the thing is, he lost so much ground when he missed pit road. He was back in 3rd or 4th position. He has run down the leader. Not that the leaders come back to him. If you watch the times, he has run the leader down. Matt?
KP, it's been a tale of 2 different lines for Jimmie Johnson and the 1 car, Jimmy McMurray. You can see down in 3 and 4, it's shaded. McMurray's running up top. The car is just too tight to run the bottom, but it is starting to free up. Meanwhile, Johnson says when he tries to hustle his car, it starts to snap loose. What they're waiting for about another 10 minutes. Kevin Bonamania reminded Jamie last night in the Nationwide race, when the sun went down, the track started to go up more and more on the free side, and that's what he's starting to see characteristic-wise on that 1 car.
Yeah, and just as you were mentioning that, Matt, the 48, you can see the 48's trying everything he can, and he is getting a little bit loose. The harder he drives it down through the corner, the car's just a little bit sideways. And it, you know, it's hard to explain. Sometimes it's so much easier to run a car down, but it's so tough to get around them. You know, especially if they're working the same line. But as you can see, Jimmy, you know, he made all this ground up, and now he's just kind of stuck there.
And we saw that, you know, we saw that almost in that first run, where right after the first pit stop with the 48 and the 1. The 1 stayed right behind him. He never really gained. He never really lost. Everybody else, but Jimmy has run the 1 car down. You know, it's not that the 1 car on this run after this last round of green flag stops, the 1 car has maintained the same speed.
They started on the front row. McMurray and Johnson are the only 2 drivers to have led here tonight at Chicago. Under caution for the 2nd time tonight at Chicago. Debris in turn 2. You see it just below the white line there. Bad news for Jamie McMurray and Jimmie Johnson, who were pulling away. Good news for Ryan Newman. The first car 1 lap down in 24th will receive the free pass. Last time these drivers pitted, lap 94. We're at 130 now, or we've completed 130. So they will no doubt be coming to pit road. Phil Parsons going to lead us off on this cycle of stops.
3rd place car of David Ruderman comes down pit road. They're going to take a little bit of air out of both front tires. Still needs it a little bit freer through the center of the corner. Marty.
Jeff Gordon running fourth on that run. Said the car is extremely hard to describe and even harder to drive. Slides to the very end of his pit stall. He's on the bottom of your screen. Loose on exit. Big air pressure adjustment and a track bar adjustment this time, Matt.
And Jimmie Johnson, significant chassis adjustment. His car was snug in the center. You can see he was trying to hustle. The car got loose. Also up top, the one car, Jimmy McMurray. He said the track was progressively getting more free as the sun went down. Kevin Mannion made an air pressure change in the right rear to try to tighten the car up.
How many times do you see it? That #1 pit stall paying big dividends. McMurray won the pole here yesterday. Jimmie Johnson holding serve as well. He went in second. He makes his way off second. Gordon and Truex the others. Back for enhanced race coverage of NASCAR on TNT Summer Series. Log on to NASCAR.com and click on to TNT Race Buddy. Choose from 4 live camera angles, get up-to-minute pit notes, and chat with other race fans, all for free. TNT Race Buddy on NASCAR.com. Kurt Busch has struggled here this evening.
Wow, look at that. He's got
stay.
a shock in his hand, in the left hand. They're making a major adjustment on that car.
We talk about pit stops, and NASCAR fans, your vote helped determine last week's rank from Daytona. Jeff Gordon is currently in the lead with Dale Jr. and Jimmie Johnson right behind him. Be sure to cast your vote for the AT&T Fastest Pit Crew. You can do so from your AT&T phone. Text the car number to 2258 for the crew you think is the fastest and most valuable. TNT will reveal the standings each week, so make sure to vote. The AT&T Fastest Pit Crew of the Year Award, brought to you by AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network.
Be interesting to see if Jamie takes. If I was Jamie, I'd take the inside, knowing how good that 48 is down on the bottom. Be interesting to see which lane he chooses.
Casey Kane will restart 14th, and now we check out the Built Ford Tough driving force. Talked about Ford and how impressive they have been here tonight. Kane has been good in recent weeks. 3 top 5s in the last 4 races have him up 7 spots in the standings. He's now 16th in Sprint Cup Series points. TNT tomorrow. It's a new season and a new reason to get more leverage. Don't miss an all-new Leverage tomorrow, 9/8 Central. It's only on TNT. Quick update on the changes for Kurt Busch to Ralph.
Adam, as we told you earlier, they've been trying everything with this car. It was so loose. They threw a bunch of stuff at it, made it even worse. So finally he said, just throw the kitchen sink at it. And that's what they've done. They changed 2 front shocks. We'll see if that works for Kurt now.
He's 1 lap down. The last car in the 1 lap down category restarts 33rd. Up front, similar to how we started the race. McMurray won the battle off pit road, but this time choosing the inside lane as the pole sitter at the beginning of the night. He started on the outside. Jimmie Johnson took the lead away from him. Gordon, Truex, Reutemann, the top 5. 135 laps will be complete as we get set to turn them loose once again at Chicago.
Man, really good restart for McMurray on that deal. That was the smart thing to do, was take that bottom lane away from the 48 car. And now he just wants to get away from him as much as he can. Whoa, look at the Biffle in the middle of the pack there. Sideways as they stack up. Greg got real loose there in the center.
Nice battle for second. Jeff Gordon, who restarted 3rd, able to get around Jimmie Johnson, and Truex working the inside lane. In our countdown to green coverage earlier tonight, we were talking about that group of drivers from 8th back to 15th.
Oh, hang on, he's going.
Contact from Truex.
Wow.
he dodged a bullet there.
Stay down there. Keep going. No cars. Caution's out. Caution's out.
Not sure there was any contact there. I don't see any marks on that car. It could have been just. It could have been an arrow loose deal.
Yeah. Tires are up.
You know, he got really lucky. Look at his splitter. His splitter is clean. He really didn't do any damage to that car other than flat spotting the tires.
This angle will show if there was any contact or not.
You see him get out under him. That's tough right there. It's all. Oh, you see the 00 get almost into the back of the 56. I think they probably got together a little bit. It's really hard to say. You couldn't see from that angle too well. You see the 56 powers up and drives right there, but it looks like the 48 just gets loose right there, man.
I don't think he touched him.
Yeah, I swear it looks like the 48 from that angle just absolutely, as he gets on the gas and turns, it just jumps out from under him.
I mean, don't forget, you know, it's low tire pressures, and you know, you're taking a lot of air off that spoiler when you're down on the inside of the car. We talked about earlier. You don't have, when you're on the bottom, you don't have any air on your car when you've got a car right up next to you. Ralph?
Well, I can tell you what Martin said over the radio. He said he didn't feel like he touched him. He felt like he gave him plenty of room, and that maybe in his mind, Jimmy was holding him down. That's what he felt. Matt?
They pulled a lot of grass out from that grill area. That's really the only issue that Jimmie Johnson had. Chad Knaus asked him, was the car loose? And Jimmy said, yes, it was.
Jimmie Johnson goes from running inside the top 5 to 24th in the running order. McMurray continues to lead. Just past halfway in Chicago. Time now to take a look at our Verizon race summary. 2 lead changes among 2 different drivers. Average speed just over 145 miles per hour under our 3rd caution. And we've been under caution for 12 laps tonight. Going back green, Jamie McMurray, the race leader. He once again takes the inside lane, and now another Hendrick driver to the outside. This time it's Jeff Gordon. Michael Waltrip racing right behind. Truex on the inside, the outside to Rudiman in row 2.
He's got the restarts figured out.
Yeah, the inside lane's been good to him. So Paul Menard hanging tough inside the top 10. Boyer and Burton now up there out of the RCR camp. They've looked good. Here's the battle for 6th. Those 2 cars nose to tail inside of Carl Edwards.
All of a sudden, these guys they got a little more step in them. I mean, with the 48 out of the picture, all these guys think they've got a chance now. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, the Johnson's back in 24th. It's going to take a while for him to work through this traffic and get back up there. I think he will before the night's over. But trust me, when you see a guy like that that's been dominant have problems, all of a sudden everybody steps up a little bit more.
It's kind of like, and I know this sounds strange, but it's kind of like Tiger being in a golf tournament. When he doesn't make the cut, or when he had his problems, everybody else stepped up and they're like, okay, it's our time to shine. We can take this tournament. We can do that. It's the same way this thing is. Jimmy's dominated the sport for the last 4 years. So when a guy like that has trouble, everybody else says, okay, this is my shot. I got a chance at winning a race here.
That's David Rudiman on the inside of Martin Truex Jr. for 3rd. Mark Martin won this race a year ago, racing with Joey Logano. They're going at it for a position right around 20th. Sam Hornish Jr. hanging right there as well, although he is 1 lap down.
Keep your eye on the 5 car right there. They get real loose, and Matt did a nice job seeing it coming and dove down to the apron.
Mark Martin fell out of the chase a week ago, was 11th entering Daytona.
I'm surprised how many loose cars we have right now. Even though, you know, the temperature has dropped, the track's gotten cooler. But I'll tell you what, you know, I would have expected more cars to be tighter than loose. Marty?
Exactly right, Wally. Normally, when we see this happen, a track gets tighter, right? Well, for some reason, this track, as Matt was mentioning earlier, last night got looser, and all the drivers are saying it's getting looser the longer they run. Mark Martin, that's been the case. He's had a loose race car the entire night, but that last run, Mark told the guys, that's the best we've been. I think as this track cools down, we'll get even a little bit better, guys.
And that's really your hope. Normally how it goes when you're at this time in a night race and you know it's going to get darker, you know it's going to get cooler, you hope the track tightens up. So if you're a little bit loose, the track actually will come to you. That's your hopes anyway.
And some drivers who are starting to get closer and closer to the front as that happens. We saw Clint Boyer go around David Rudiman for 4th, and right behind him his teammate.
See Boyer here working on the 56. Boy, he got a really good jump there. And just pulled up on the back of the 56. And like I said, these cars are already on edge. When you have somebody pull up on your bumper and you're loose, it makes it just a little bit worse because it takes the air off your rear spoiler.
And you saw the 56 right there with the 33. Think about the 56 and the 48 a minute ago, how close they were. It was almost the exact same thing. And you know, Jimmy never really said, he run over me, he got into me. I think they just got so close when the car took off, it just took off.
Truex on a little bit of a slide since the green flag went back in the air. Saw Boyer go around, Burton did the same, and now Carl Edwards working on Truex, this for the 6th position. More on Truex with Ralph.
Well, they've been working on the air pressures on that 56, so right now the technical term is squishy. That's what the tires are in the center of the corner, so he says he can't get the car to turn in the middle of the corner.
Aerodynamics always key, as you guys just pointed out. When you come to one of these mile-and-a-half racetracks, it can be very difficult for the teams, Larry.
Well, I think one thing that's caught all these teams off guard is these cars are loose tonight. Everyone anticipated that into the night these cars were going to get tighter. Now, we talked in the countdown to the green. One difference we've got here from a year ago is the rear spoiler. We don't have that wing. Even though this was a change at the back of the car, it actually put more front downforce on the front of the car that makes the car looser. What I've noticed here several times, we saw it with the 48 car, we saw it with the 5 car, is when a car gets right here on that left rear, it kind of pushes the air against here and makes it looser. I think one thing that could be causing that is this shark fin, because that's a difference on these cars this year in 2010 once we added the rear spoiler.
That's a good point. With the spoiler, or with the wing, you had end caps, and they were a little square piece, probably 8 or 10 inches long, square, you know, from perfectly square almost when you really look at it. And they were different shapes and different sizes, so you could really create downforce or give up some drag with just the end caps, not only the wing, just the end caps. What they tried to do with these cars was to keep that same side force, but that piece is farther inboard than what the end caps were. And it could be that it's just packing up in that space there, and as the air packs up in that space, it takes these things around. Remember, these guys talked about it earlier in the pre-race, where this is just a round racetrack, so you're constantly turning. So if your car's loose, it's loose a long time.
Wally, you've talked several times tonight about how good Greg Biffle felt about his car, and he's really proved it inside the top 10, and he just got around Truex. He's now up to the 7th position.
Yeah, the car looks really, really good, you know, after they make a pit stop and up to about halfway through the run. The last couple of times they look like they've lost some ground towards the end of the run. If they can make the car better, especially towards the end of the run, I really think that Biffle's got, you know, he's got something to have a really great finish tonight.
Biffle, a driver that needs to have a good run. He's still flirting with that chase break point. He entered this evening's race 10th in the standings. Jamie McMurray started on the pole. He's been impressive all night long. He leads at Chicago.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing from Chicago is brought to you by the Home Depot, proud sponsor of Joey Logano and the number 20 team. Race fans, visit HomeDepot.com for all your home improvement needs. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot.
Jamie McMurray continues to lead as the sun goes down in Chicago. No big changes inside the top 10. And right outside the top 10, Juan Pablo Montoya, a driver who has dealt with his fair share of issues this evening.
Picking up a vibration, the right rear. I think we got a loose car. Yeah, it's loose. Absolutely, 100%. Someone leaning like, brrr, it does that.
His best run here was a year ago when he finished 10th. He's dropping like a rock right now, and he's running in 11th.
There we go. When you look at Denny Hamlin back there in the 11 car, they have made change after change after change tonight. He started 17th. He has climbed up to 12th. The car has been tight every run tonight. Continue to make changes, Ralph. They just cannot get that car to be free.
Well, Casey Kane, Matt, has been struggling with a very loose race car all night long. They've made wholesale changes on that track bar, wedge, you name it, they've done it. It's starting to finally tighten up a little bit in the middle of the run. Still not good enough to get deeper into the field, Phil.
Yeah, Ralph Dale Earnhardt Jr. now running in the 14th position, his highest position of the race. They lowered the track bar, made an air pressure adjustment that last pit stop. It seems to be working. Junior's a little bit happier with the car. David Ragan, if there's anybody on earth that could use a good run, it's David Ragan. He's having a great run today, running right now up in the 15th position. 4 tires on his last pit stop lap, number 131, with some air pressure adjustments, Matt.
AJ Allmendinger has seen some excitement tonight. We showed you earlier when he bounced off the wall, left a big donut down the wall. His team has worked on that right side, especially the corner of that spoiler. It's now back to where it was earlier in the race, and that's just on the tight side, Phil.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth came back in for the Jimmy Johnson spin, so he has about 6 laps of fuel more than the rest of the guys do. He came in for 4 tires, no adjustment, because they were so far at the back. Right now, is the car a little bit loose up off the corners, Matt.
Mark Martin back there in 18th. He said his car just not what he wants right now, a little bit too loose. And he said, we need to get some momentum going. Told me when we were riding around the track earlier today, we've had just 1 top 10 on the nine races. We can get there, just need to be consistent, Matt.
1 of 4 places Jimmy Johnson's never won. Would love to put a big check mark next to that on his racing resume. Trying to climb back up, though, through the field. Pitted twice after that spin on lap 138 and 139. The car, though, now on the tight side. He's dialed a little rear brake into it, Marty.
Matt, I was talking to Brad Keselowski earlier this week, and he said, you know, we've had 2 DNFs in our last 3 races. I just want a top 20 finish this weekend so we can start building a little bit. Guess what? Right now, running 20th with a car that's been loose for most of the night. Battle for the lead, Adam.
And it's Jeff Gordon to the inside of Jamie McMurray. Gordon slowly reeling him in, and he's able to grab the top spot at lap 165, our 3rd different leader of the night. More on McMurray, now running 2nd with Matt Yoakum.
And he told Kevin Bono Mannion that when the 24th Gordon got to him and would start to get around him, he was going to move back up to the high side. The car just way too free. He said, we really need to make a bigger change on tightening up this 1 car on our next stop.
Matty's under attack again. Here comes Rudeman in the 3rd position.
And this is the time where the track changes drastically. You know, this is where the temperature really changes on these cars. So if you've got a decent setup right now, you know, you start making adjustments, but you don't have to go too far. Some of these guys, though, are going to have to make some pretty big adjustments. Like Larry was talking in the keys of the race, that everybody's trying to look for that balance right now, and you either go big adjustments or you just try to, you know, keep up with what you have.
Yeah, but you know, the guys that needed to make adjustments, they should have made them the first 2 stops.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're 100 laps to go in the race, and basically that's where we've run 160 laps, it's tough to make a big adjustment and come from 18th to win this race. Unless you're Jimmy Johnson, who has already been to the front, he's just got to work his way back.
And guys, the way this race is going right now, you may only get about 2 more opportunities to make adjustments. I'm going to see possibly green flag stops in about 20 laps, and that will make it a 1-stop race.
There goes Rudeman around McMurray. He is up to the runner-up position. The track, it is a changing. The lights are on at Chicagoland. The sun just about gone on the horizon. Jeff Gordon leading David Rudiman by 1.3 seconds at Chicago. 173 of 267 laps complete here this evening. And while Gordon is looking very good on track, it has been no picnic for his teammate. Jimmy Johnson had the spin through the grass, and he's been on pit road again after this.
Yeah, that's what put him in the wall right there. What are they saying about that, Matt?
Well, a good example of the considerable wear on that right front. And Jimmy pitted back on lap 138 when he spun, but on the previous stop to that, when he pitted, he had the same wear issue on that right front. Remember, Jimmy's been fighting tight much of the night and just wearing out that right front.
And he was 19th when he popped the wall and had to make the pit stop, Matt. He's now scored 2 laps down in the 33rd position.
That can't be a wear issue.
Yeah.
He's just put those tires on. I mean, that's a tire issue.
Wait, yeah, I don't understand that being a wear issue, because he's run half the distance or 2/3 of the distance at most that these other guys have had, and he's the only guy that's had an issue. And the way that tire looked, you know, Goodyear will obviously take a look at that tire and see if it's something in the car setup, or if maybe that's just a bad tire.
You see, usually, like if you get a tire that blisters, you know, you'll see blisters here, here, here. This thing just came apart. That's really unusual to see a tire, you know, to do that. He could have even run over something.
It just looks like it unwound.
Yeah.
When you look at
like
it,
a retread.
Like a retread. It's like the inside cap came off the inside of the tire. But these guys run a lot of static camber. They run a lot. They run really stiff in the front, as you see Tony's car bounce up the racetrack. So that it's really, really hard on the Goodyear tires. We've run 2 races here with the nationwide race and now with the Cup race, and really nobody's had any tire issues that I know of. Maybe some teams have had some, but I thought the Goodyear tire that they brought has been a phenomenal tire here.
Saw Tony Stewart go around Martin Truex Jr. Smoke, who started inside the top 5 tonight, had a pit road miscue that put him outside the top 15. He's in position now, being scored in the 8th position. And Wally, like we mentioned earlier, he loves that low line.
Yeah, it's a good place to be around this racetrack.
If you can stay there,
if you can stay there, yeah. I mean, and it looks like Tony has. I mean, he really has tried to stay on the bottom of the racetrack so far all night. Oh, we got
down here in front of him. Turn 4 up against the wall. Turn 4 up against the wall.
Right behind him, Robbie Gordon couldn't get
got
slowed down.
piled in here now. Stay low, stay low. On down the apron, on the apron, on the apron.
Hey, that's tough right there. You know, Robbie just, when you see something in front of you, you saw Robbie. You just eye lock on it, and then you're on the brakes, and you saw the smoke coming off the front tires. And when the smoke coming off the front tires, the car's never going to turn. It's never going to turn.
Yeah.
People that drive on ice and on snow, they know that. You got to let the front tires roll, and they've got to be able to turn. Robbie had them locked up, and there was nothing he could do, and the 21 car was just sitting there.
Yeah, Robbie was hoping the car would slow down, I think, a lot more than it did, too, when he had the brakes locked up.
And I think Robbie's hoping, as we see the 21 go in the corner, he goes in, you see it kind of wiggle, he gets up, it gets away from him. I mean, it almost looked like he had a flat the way it just wiggled. And
he was loose way early into the car. He got loose getting in.
See, Robbie's locked up. I think Robbie was hoping the 21 would go down the racetrack.
Yeah.
And the 21 was slow enough that he just stopped.
You can't really, you can't go. You see, actually, the car was going up a second ago.
Yeah.
Boy, he clobbered him.
Yeah, he did. That's a hard hit right there.
That's a hard hit.
Man, lifted those real tires off the ground.
And that tire's locked up, man. That's 4 tires locked up.
Look at the parts and pieces on the racetrack, man.
Just to give you an idea of the impact.
Wow, that's tough. And you saw the right side of Bill's car. Bill had already been in the wall a little bit, so Bill might have had a tire going down.
Got about 3 on the 21.
Watch
about
Bill.
30 back to the
He
lead.
got loose right there. Way early, man. Yeah. Way early. That thing wiggles as soon as he makes a left turn.
Here's a caution for us, bud.
As soon as he makes that turn, that thing wiggles in the corner, and he chases it up. The racetrack runs out of room, and then he's just sitting there. And I really believe most times, as a driver, most of the time on a banked racetrack, you assume that car is going to go to the bottom of the racetrack.
Well, you always hear the saying that you aim for the crash because it won't be there by the time you get there.
And I think Bill had already slowed down enough and bounced off the wall that he was just slow enough that he could stop. These things are banked, what, 18 degrees or something in that range, and that the 21 car just stopped there. And Robbie aimed towards the wreck, but the wreck was still there when he got there.
Both drivers, as you saw, able to walk from their cars and get in the ambulance. And Kevin Harvick on pit road, big adjustments coming here.
Well, I think that it looks like they're going the carburetor. I think they were having some issues with the fuel pump, or there was some kind of issue with the fuel. They may be changing a carburetor. I can't see what they're doing. But okay,
we're
they're
getting
saying it's a
reportage.
fuel pump issue. Yeah.
Larry?
Yeah, I want to go back to the 48 car situation. The one thing that caught my ear was Matt Yoakum said earlier in the race that they had some wear problems on the inside the right front. Now, one thing that teams will do at any racetrack to help a car to turn has to do with the front end settings. It's called camber. And what you do to really help the car turn, you'll take and you'll lean this right front tire in at the top. That's called negative camber. The way you do that is with shims here at the A-arm. Well, what really magnifies camber and will cause a wear issue is the car travels. That even kicks more negative camber in it. Sometimes it helps the car turn, but you certainly can wear the inside of that right front tire out.
You know, Larry, how many laps did he have on that tire?
It was about a half of a run, because remember that problem he had was right after a restart, and he came right onto pit road and got 4 fresh tires. So it was about a half of a run, not that far behind the other guys.
Because I know Matt, you know, I heard when Matt said it was they had a wear problem. That just kind of surprised me that they didn't have that many laps on that tire, you know, for it to be that problem. But maybe they do.
Kevin Harvick sitting on pit road has now gone 2 laps down to the leaders. And when the caution came out, it was Sam Hornish Jr., the first car 1 lap down, so he will receive the free pass. Sam in the 25th position.
And there's 6 cars 1 lap down. We talk about Jimmy Johnson being 2 laps down. You talk about Kevin Harvick. They're not in line for the lucky dog. They got to race their rear end off, make one of those laps up on their own to get in line for the lucky dog. That's a tough thing to do against a field like this.
Yeah.
What's even more miserable for Kevin Harvick tonight, that his 2 teammates, Clint Bowyer and Jeff Burton, being scored inside the top 5. Under caution for the 4th time here this evening. The cleanup continues for the accident when Bill Elliott got turned around and was knocked out of shape by Robbie Gordon. Now we send it down to Lindsay Czarniak.
Hey, Adam. Race recap here for you. Started out not too eventful, but Jimmy Johnson takes the lead right away from Jamie McMurray. Jamie McMurray not even to lead a lap, the pole sitter. Jimmy's car had been dominant. Lap 93, misses coming down into the pit. Look at Jimmy. Missed opportunity there. Jimmy Johnson had problems later on also. Lap 137. This, though, an incredible save. Jimmy Johnson almost loses control, careens around the grass. Look at how he handles himself and is able to save it. He could have gone a lap down there, is completely able to conserve it. Lap 174. More issues on the track. Jimmy Johnson brushing the wall. He has had struggles, it seems, all day long here. A problem with the jack. Lap 179 we go. 21 car of Bill Elliott backwards. Bill Elliott struggling. Watch this. The number 7 of Robbie Gordon slams right on into him. That is why we are under caution right now. Caution number 4, a hard hit brought out by Robbie Gordon, banging into the 21. Adam Alexander.
Thank you, Lindsay. They're pulling Bill Elliott's car away. Nice job by the safety crews of cleaning up the incident over here in turn number 4. And now an opportunity for drivers to come down pit road and take one more step at getting it dialed in for the stretch run. And when they hit the pit lane, it will be Jeff Gordon that leads the way. David Rudiman, Clint Bowyer, Jamie McMurray, and Jeff Burton, the top 5. Phil Parsons.
Adam, David Rudiman will bring his Toyota down pit road from the 2nd position. He said, I'm a little free in. So Rodney said he's going to take about a half a pound of air out of the right rear tire, Ralph.
half a round out of the track bar for the 33 of Clint Boyer to help free him up. They're going to get all the gas in they can from Brian Smith. He was down to the final 3.5 gallons, Marty.
Jeff Gordon, top of your screen, the leader. They took a big swing at it last time. They hit a home run. Gordon loved the changes. Doesn't want any changes here. A small piece of tape will go on the front end. That's it, Matt.
The right side of your screen, the first pit stall, the McDonald's car, Jimmy McMurray, down one round on the track bar to try to tighten up this Chevrolet. The car was just way too free. He dropped back to fourth before it stops.
And Matt McMurray gets one of them back on pit road. He's up to third. Boyer gained a position as well. That because David Rudiman dropped back to fourth. Biggest loser on that exchange, Jeff Burton. And as you can see, Jeff Gordon holds serve. He came in the race leader. He exits the same. 183 laps complete at Chicago. Under caution for the fourth time tonight. You're watching NASCAR on TNT. NASCAR on TNT, proud to bring you live coverage of the Sprint Cup Series at Chicago. Tonight, it's the LifeLock.com 400. The race leader is Jeff Gordon. Clint Boyer, Jamie McMurray, David Rudiman, Carl Edwards, and Greg Biffle, the top five. Let's take an inside look at what's happening now in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, brought to you by Sprint and Evo 4G, America's first 4G phone. Kevin Harvick, the point leader, despite some issues here tonight. Tony Stewart with the fastest lap time. For more NASCAR stats and live in-car audio, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile and the new Evo, only from Sprint, at sprint.com/speed.
That looks like a pretty cool phone. I wouldn't know how to work it, but I'd like to have it.
I couldn't tweet on it.
You're not allowed to tweet.
I'm not allowed to. I'm on.
But I can.
You can tweet.
Interesting.
I can't. That's you.
Hand it over, big boy.
I'm not handing it to you.
Talked about the issues with Kevin Harvick. What can you add, Larry?
Well, they were having some fuel pressure issues, and they talked about maybe looking at the fuel pump. Now, what you have to remember with the new Chevrolet R07 engine, these guys don't have that mechanical fuel pump on the right front. You have the cable-driven fuel pump. Now, this goes into the back of the bell housing, and it's driven off the back of the camshaft. It's kind of a safety issue. Now, the fuel pump is actually located in the trunk. Now, I'm going to use my Toyota Cutaway engine and drivetrain to simulate. This is what that fuel pump looks like. It's a Waterman cable-driven fuel pump. What they did, they raised the hood. They made sure this cable was still working in the back of the bell housing. Phil Parsons told me that was good. Then they went to the trunk to make sure that everything looked good with the fuel pump. They actually did not find a thing. Now, this has been done for a safety standpoint, but it has had some flaws along the way.
So that the problem Kevin Harvick was facing, a different issue for his teammate on pit road a moment ago. Marty?
Yeah, Adam, for Jeff Burton, he lost 3 spots on that exchange of pit stops going back to the 8th position. They had problems on the right rear. When they pulled it off, it didn't quite come off. They had to hit it one more time with the gun. Then they got the right rear off. Took a little bit extra, but those little bits cost the team a lot of time on pit road. Jeff Burton gave the team a pep talk afterwards, said, hey guys, we got plenty of time to get back in this game. We still have a car that can win the race. Adam.
Marty, TNT Monday, the summer's most thrilling news series. Meet television's next great team. Don't miss Rosali and Isles series premiere Monday 10/9 Central, only on TNT.
That cable thing, you know, anytime you introduce something new into it, and especially a cable run thing like that, they can have issues with it. Understand that's all for safety. That's all to keep the fires away. You know, we talked to NASCAR this morning about some of the fires and some of the issues and some of the things that they've addressed and their safety issues. This was strictly a safety thing to create that, to keep the fuel from pumping as the car crashes. Rob?
Let's go down to Phil Parsons.
Yeah, guys, I'm standing down with Robbie Gordon. First of all, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. That's a huge bummer for both of us. I mean, neither one of our teams are in positions to kill cars like that. I think he popped a tire. I started to go down around the middle groove trying to get down underneath him, and he slid down last second and ran right dead in the side of him, so that sucks.
It looked like when the brakes were locked up, then the thing wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, I just wouldn't turn, wouldn't do anything, so I tried to get back off him, but just wouldn't turn.
All right, sorry to see you out, bud.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Jimmy Johnson, one of the drivers that took the wave around under this caution. He was 2 laps now. Now he's 1 lap down, being scored in 31st. Jeff Gordon, the race leader, choosing the inside lane. Clint Boyard is outside. Pole sitter Jamie McMurray, who's led many laps here tonight, restarts 3rd. David Rudiman, Carl Edwards, the top 5.
Yeah, you see Stewart sitting in the 7th spot. He's worked his way back into the mix of this deal.
A green flag back in the air as we complete lap 188.
Ooh, that one car dance there on the inside. Boyer on the outside, right on his goal.
Carl Edwards sliding backwards at the restart. Jamie McMurray getting aggressive as the green flag goes back in the air, as is David Rudiman.
Oh, something happened to Biffle. Something's wrong with Biffle. He just pulled out of line and he's losing spots left and right. He lost about 4 or 5 spots there.
Yeah, he was inside the top 5 and now trying to hang on to a position inside the top 10.
10-4, 98 still inside.
He may have lost the ignition box or something.
Yeah, because you're right. He went to the high side right.
1 back to the 11 on the bottom.
Scott to report he may be losing the engine.
Yeah, you see these guys just driving by. Just as Wally said, they're working on it. They're working on the ignition. You heard him say switch the battery too.
What's up, Phil?
Guys, Greg came over the radio and said, guys, I think it's blowing up. So that's that may be the issue for them, is that FR9 may be going away.
And you know, we've seen a couple of those. We saw obviously the 9 car up at New Hampshire. I'm pretty sure that was the FR9, the new engine there. But you know, you go through that cycle. It's like being a pilot. You go through that cycle of, okay, everything that could be wrong, let me go check it. Let's check batteries, let's check ignition, let's check this. Obviously, whatever it is, it's not running down the straightaway, but it seems to run down. Doesn't seem to run down the straightaway, but he can maintain in the corners.
Yeah, his RPMs are way off compared to the other cars. So he's lost a lot of RPMs in that engine.
But you see him able to maintain through the corners because he can almost run wide open.
Both ignition boxes. It dropped a valve or something.
Yeah.
Problems on track for Greg Biffle, and even bigger issues for the point leader Kevin Harvick, who has now taken his car to the garage. Up front, David Rudiman continues to run good here this evening, driving to the inside of Jamie McMurray and taking 3rd away.
He's been solid all night. He really has. I mean, he's been right up in the mix of it. He doesn't have the speed, it seems like, to get up there and lead, but he's a solid top 5 car tonight.
Yeah, he has just hovered there, 3rd and 4th all night long. No matter who led or who run 5th and 6th, he was 3rd or 4th right in there. And Truex, these 2 cars, Michael Waltrip Racing, these 2 cars out of that stable have been strong here.
And Rudiman's been good in recent weeks. He's picked up 10 positions in the standings in the last 8 races and stands to gain some more here tonight.
Yeah, and you saw him. He worked the one car. Couldn't get around him, but then you see him get around him, and instantly he takes off, and he's 5 or 6 car lengths within a lap or so.
And I was anxious to see how he handled things as we made that transition from day to night, because so many times cars will be in the top 10, and then once you go through that transition on track, a number of guys will drift back. Not been the case for Rudiman. He's been good from the start. And there you see Harvick. Phil?
Guys, I just talked to crew chief Gil Martin. He said they're going to change the fuel pump and the cable. He said we're not sure exactly which one it is. We're going to change both. He said then we'll know then. But unfortunately, it's going to be an extended stay behind pit wall in the garage area here.
Like I said, pretty humbling. Come off a win one week and we're sitting in the garage fixing it the next.
Kevin Harvick, a driver that's made a living off of starting at the back and finishing in the front. Not going to happen for the point leader tonight. Jeff Gordon going for his first win of the year at Chicago.
Let's throw on those Saturday clothes. It's doing season, when we grab a little spare time and get after it. The Home Depot has all the right prices and all the know-how to start making things happen. Less with our wallets and more with our own 2 hands. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Right now, estate oak laminates at the new lower price of just 87 cents per square foot.
David Rudiman not messing around tonight in Chicago. He drove around Clint Bowyer for second, and he's beaten on Jeff Gordon's door for the lead.
He makes some time right here getting into turn 3. He dives to the bottom, picks up the gas, and was really good there for a lap or so. But Jeff's got that high line working right now and just got the momentum. And you heard these guys talk about this being a momentum racetrack. He has come from a ways back to run the leaders down.
David Rudiman's only victory coming last year at Charlotte. Very impressive there. Another 1.5 mile track. Jeff Gordon, one of the best all time at these kinds of facilities, but neither has won in 2010.
Rudiman's car works really good to the center. Yeah. When he's down there, you can see when he's down there on the bottom and he picks up the throttle, the car gets a little bit loose, and that's where he's losing that little bit of ground.
Yeah.
Getting off the corner because he's just getting a little bit loose there, Phil.
Yeah, guys, David Rudiman came into this race 170 points out. And it's a tale of what a season it could have been. 3 times he was running up in the top 5. They had engine problems. TRD brought a brand new intake manifold for this engine combination here. The guys say it's performed admirably. A lot more power as we see David Rudiman side by side for the lead with Jeff Gordon.
He's just been taking steps every lap.
Just can't close the deal from the middle off.
He may close it this time getting into this corner because he gets into turn 3 from that low side a lot better than Jeff does.
It's just that this is where Jeff starts rolling back around up on it. Right about here is where Jeff has some momentum.
You know, I tell you what, though, that double zero's been strong up off the corner because he maintains right there. He's able to lay on that door and just all but stop that 24 as he starts down the straightaway.
Just over 60 laps to go, and things are starting to get good on the track. Kevin Harvick, who had gone to the garage, is back out and joined the fray.
And the thing here is, and you know this, Wally, when you run down under somebody, you don't want to run lap after lap after lap because you use your stuff up.
Right, yeah.
Jeff's not using his stuff up. Jeff's just running his line. But you use your stuff up trying to get around him. You got to fall back in line, let your stuff cool off, and then come back and try him again. And you see right here, when he goes up to that high line and can run the same line that Jeff's running, he made decent time up off those corners the last couple of times. He's just got to let his stuff cool back down and then come back and try him again. That's what's so strange about these cars, as we talk about it all the time. Running somebody down and passing somebody are 2 totally different things. You know, it gets really excited at the end of the race, but you got to make that pass.
What's Gordon saying about it, Marty?
A little bit loose on entry, guys, and you guys can see, and you talked about how good he is from the middle of the corner off. That's where Jeff has really bragged on his race car all night long. But Jeff is going to fight for this because he made the comment when he got out front last time, it is way different out here with clean air. So that's really what Gordon's fighting here for. Not so much to lead, what's more that clean air.
And you know what, Rudiman, if he wanted to capitalize on that loose end, Marty, if Rudiman sees that, he should get right on the 24's tail as they go into the corner. That's going to make the car worse for the 24. If you just slip him up a little bit, it may be able to dive underneath him. But as a driver, you're looking at that 24 going, okay, where is your weakness? Where's your weak spot? And then if you find that weak spot, just like a boxer, you go after it.
You go after it, exactly. And right now, you know, he's sizing him up a little bit. You know what I mean? I think we saw that with Jimmy earlier. Jimmy just decided he was going to ride behind that one car for a while. Then obviously Jimmy's had trouble. But you see the double zero can close or has closed on him a couple of times whenever he really feels like it.
This is a memorable night for Jeff Gordon. This marks his 600th career start in the Sprint Cup Series. Entering tonight, the only driver in the top 6 in the standings in 2010 that had not won a race.
And should have. I mean, he should have multiple victories this year, the 24. They were good enough to win. they got beat on green-white checkers a couple of times. So, I mean, these guys, they should have some wins in the win column. There's no question about it.
I'd say second 8 times in 2010. That'll break your heart.
Guys, you know, as I watch these guys go side by side, battle lap after lap, I can't help but think here, probably in about 20 to 25 laps, should we stay green, this race could be determined on what happens on pit road. Good pit stops, and oh, by the way, no mistakes.
The drivers look good on track, but as Larry pointed out, those guys on pit road could be the difference makers here tonight. While we were away, David Rudiman able to grab the race lead at Chicago.
Made it look pretty easy. And I think, I mean, Jeff just could not do anything with him here. And boy, I tell you what, when Rudiman got by him, he left him.
Yeah, once Rudiman had the whole racetrack, you saw right here, Jeff had finally he had worn him out. He had just conceded the fact. He clears him right here, and Jeff gives him room as he slides up. And once David got by him, he did. I mean, he put 4 or 5 car lengths on him in that first lap.
Already an advantage of more than a second for David Rudiman. Getting ready to go around Greg Biffle, the driver who's been good throughout the night. Talked about an engine issue on this restart. He now goes a lap down. Biffle in 25th right now. When you get to this stage of the season, you can't help but talk about the points and not really what's happening at the front as much as you discuss that 8 to 15 area and those drivers that are trying to make their way into the chase. A lot of drivers have been written off. A couple of times we thought Casey Kane was done. He's been very good in recent weeks, and now you kind of have to bring David Rudiman back into the conversation.
But you know, a lot of these guys, I don't even think they're even thinking about it. I think Rudiman's thinking about just winning races right now. There's a lot of teams that are like, listen, even if we get into the chase, we're not good enough to win the championship. So they're focusing in on winning races, and I think that's what you should be doing.
And that's what you should. I think Jeff Gordon, I heard somebody say Jeff made the quote, I'd rather have 5 race wins at this point in time and be farther back in points than where I am. And that tells you how important race wins are to these guys. Making the chase and being in the points and having an opportunity to race for that championship, that's huge. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, sitting there with 5 or 6 wins, 18 races, 19 races into the season, that's big, man.
Well, you look at it. Would you rather be in the chase and just be 11th or 12th place car in the chase, or have a couple of victories? I would rather have the victories and not have a shot at the championship. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like we said earlier. There are guys that are going to make the chase that just make the chase. Yeah. They don't have a shot at the championship. They're not chasers. And then there's guys, man, that's 3 wide. It's pretty stout right there. But when you look at it, there's guys, there's the 48 car, there's the 24 car, there's the 18 car on a regular basis, the 11. There's 6 or 7 cars up there. I thought the 2 car has shown strength in recent weeks. They're going to shoot for the championship. Those 5 or 6, and you might throw in 1 or 2 more, but there's going to be those other guys that are just going to be fighting for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. And don't get me wrong. Man, I would like that on my resume. If I'm a Cup driver, I want to have that 7th place points finisher, that 10th place. But I also want to have that 5 or 6 win season, and I think that's what Jeff was saying.
This will be the battle for second. Jeff Gordon has it now, and closing behind is Clint Bowyer. Bowyer, with his run tonight, has jumped into the top 12. David Rudiman continues to lead at Chicago. The engine has finally given way for Greg Biffle. He has been able to keep the race car on the apron, trying to avoid littering any oil around the racetrack. Let's take an inside look at what's happening now in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, brought to you by Sprint and Evo 4G, America's first 4G phone. Kevin Harvick, the point leader, entering. He is still in the point lead despite problems tonight. Fastest lap time tonight, Jeff Gordon. For more NASCAR stats and live in-car audio, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile and the new Evo, only from Sprint, at sprint.com/speed. Greg Biffle has gotten off the race track and taken his car to the garage. And while we were away, Dale Earnhardt Jr. made a green flag pit stop. He's 30th, 2 laps down, and here comes Jimmy Johnson. This would be a scheduled stop for the 48. It will happen at lap 229 to Matt Yoakum.
Slightly different cycle. Jimmie Johnson, Chad Knaus had him about a lap or two from running out of fuel. He was hoping they were going to throw a caution to the 16 of Biffle blowing up. That would help their situation. Caution didn't come. They finally brought the car down. It has just been tight all night long. Another chassis adjustment for Johnson.
Jimmie Johnson led the first 92 laps of this race after starting on the front row. Had a miscue getting on pit road during a cycle of green flag pit stops. Had a tire problem, popped the wall. Eventually went 2 laps down, and as Matt Yoakum pointed out of sequence with the leaders, had to make a green flag pit stop here and puts him even further in the hole.
50.
Saw David Rudiman leading the race. Second and third, Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer right here. And how about Carl Edwards? Entered this night 12th in the standings. Needed something good to happen to help his position in points and also to gain some momentum, and they have answered the bell.
And this may be the best run Carl's had all year long. I mean, these guys have struggled off and on, but this may be the best run as you see the leaders peeling off and starting down pit road right here.
First, let's go to Phil.
David Rudiman brings his leading car in the pits, the Tums Toyota. This probably will be the last pit stop. No changes in 4 tires, Marty.
Jeff Gordon pitting at the same time from the second position. He said, really what I want is a little bit more security at the beginning of the run. They'll put another piece of tape on the grill and make an air pressure and a wedge adjustment, trying to get the car a little bit loosened up off the corner, Matt.
And our pole sitter, Jimmy McMurray, trying to do something he's never done, and that's win from the pole. But Kevin Mannion is going to have to make a significant adjustment. The car just way too free. Meanwhile, the 14 of Tony Stewart, back to school pace scheme, trying to get back to victory lane. Adjustments across the back, both track bar and wedge. The car just gets tighter as the run goes on, Ralph.
53 car Clint Boyer stayed out, led a lap, got those 5 bonus points. Now they're going to go up a half a round on the track bar. This should be the adjustment that he's hoping for to maybe go after that win that he felt like he should have had just a week ago at Daytona. Casey Kane coming in. That car has had some major adjustments to him this week. They've been working on that car, trying to get it just the way he's needed. They made wholesale changes on it. 4 tires and fuel for him, Matt.
Carl Edwards making his way down to his pit stall for Bob Osborne to fix his race car. It's now on the tight side, but there was a window where he said the car was almost perfect, and then it slowly started to go tight. A slight chassis adjustment expected for the 99 of Edwards. Ralph?
Martin Truex is in. They're going to take 4 tires of fuel, make a track bar adjustment on this car. That's going to be it for him, and he's ready to get underway.
Mark Martin flirting with the top 10 on that run, Ralph. Car just a little bit too loose for Mark. They're going to go down a half round on the track bar, trying to tighten it up just a little bit. Also an air pressure adjustment for this 5 car. They need just a little bit, Mark said, and maybe they can get to the top 5, top 10.
Scheduled green flag pit stops. Elliott Sadler, one of the last of those to come down pit road and get his service. See top of your screen, 32 laps to go. Everyone is in their window to be able to go the distance from here. Montoya has not pitted yet, so he is the race leader. When it cycles through, Rudiman will be at the lead of the pack, Phil.
And he is reporting that he has a pretty significant vibration. Rodney Childers, crew chief, jumped up. All the tire guys gave him a thumbs up, saying that we had all the tires and all the wheels tight. So right now, David Rudiman is fighting a vibration.
And now the service for Montoya, who comes in with 32 to go, Ralph.
Well, and Adam, they had glued a spacer on that left rear. Remember, it was just about falling off the car. So they're only going to be able to change right side tires. That left rear is literally glued on the 42.
As the leaders cross the start-finish line after the cycle of stops, David Rudiman's advantage over second place Jeff Gordon, 3.2 seconds. Top 4 drivers in tonight's race looking for their first win of 2010. It's going to get good down the stretch.
Secret.
Welcome back to NASCAR on TNT, Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois. Closing on the finish here. David Rudiman is the race leader. Fourth different driver to lead here tonight. And while we were in break, Scott Speed with an interesting moment coming off of turn 4. Just missed the commitment cone, but because of where he was in relation to the track, no caution. He was able to get into his pit stall, and we stay green. Speed was running 19th when he got turned around. Elliott Sadler racing hard to stay on the lead lap. He's in 22nd right now. And the new man in second place is Carl Edwards.
Yeah, Carl's been running some pretty good lap times compared to Rudiman. I mean, he's just as fast, but unfortunately he's about 3 seconds behind the leader, so it's going to be hard to run him down.
With 23 to go, let's go through the field. We start with Phil Parsons.
You know, Adam, I reported that David Rudiman had a significant vibration. I just jumped up on the pit box. Crew Chief Rodney Childers said he thought maybe that was low air pressure when they put these tires on. As the air pressure builds up, that vibration goes away. David has not mentioned it since that initial time, Matt.
Carl Edwards runs in the second position, trying to end a long winless streak, not only for himself, but get his owner Jack Roush, Roush Fenway Racing, a victory here in Chicagoland. Says the car is down on the nose and really good on the throttle, Marty.
Well, Matt, we talked about how Jeff Gordon wants to focus on wins. Currently, they have 0. They want bonus points for the chase. But this will be, yet again, another solid top 5 if Gordon can finish here. In fact, his 5th straight top 5, their best streak of the season, Ralph.
Marty, they made a half-round adjustment on the track bar. They went up on that track bar, and now the car is just too loose for Clint Bowyer to get up there and challenge Jeff Gordon, Edwards, or Rudiman, for that matter, Matt.
The goal going in was to capitalize on the pole with a victory. Another one for Daytona 500 champion Jamie McMurray in the 1 car. But what they have done is turned in a solid performance. You look back to last year. He's working on his 5th top 5 finish, guys, this season. He only had 1 in all of 2009.
In Countdown to Green earlier tonight, Larry McReynolds said the trend here, multiple cautions late. Right now it's green, and race leader David Rudiman hopes it stays that way.
No, I'm not doing it.
Inside of 20 laps to go in the LifeLock.com 400 from Chicagoland Speedway. David Rudiman continues to lead. His advantage over second place Carl Edwards, 2 seconds. The 99 is on the move. Fan, let's check in with Larry McReynolds and get the rankings of tonight's fastest pit crew. What do you got, Larry?
Adam, it was kind of a tough choice because these guys have been pretty flawless on pit road tonight. My number 1 pick would be that Rodney Childers number 00. Get them about another 14 laps. They'll get their 2nd win. Of course, their 1st win was that rain short win at Charlotte Motor Speedway last May. In the 2nd position, how about Bob Osborne, that 99 team? They only have 1 top 5 finish this year. That was back at Richmond when they finished 5th. And Shane Wilson in that 33 group, if they can hold on in the 4th position for about 14 more laps, they will leave here in the top 12.
Thank you, Larry. And fans, your vote counts each week, so be sure to text the car number to 2258 for the pit crew you think is the fastest and most valuable. The AT&T Fastest Pit Crew of the Year Award, brought to you by AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network.
You know, Edwards is catching them a little bit, and I think a lot of it has to do with these guys are trying to stay on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Some of these cars that Rudiman is coming on. Now, when Edwards get to those guys, they don't have as much trouble because they're already a lap or 2 down. But they're going to fight the leader, and that sometimes a little bit is what, you know, all Edwards needs. He's picking off a 10th or 2 every single lap.
And another thing is, these guys that he's coming up the lap, the 78 car, the 2 car of Kurt Busch, they're not used to David Rudiman leading. Okay, they think David Rudiman's just coming. They're not sure he's a, you know, I know the spotters are saying he's a leader, but they're not used to this guy leading. And I'm going to say something. I'm going to give their pit crew, I loved what Larry just said, some of that. I'm going to give these guys, Rudiman's pit crew, a huge shout out, because when you get in this position for the first time, and really this is one of the first times that Rudiman's had a shot at really winning a race like this, you got to perform under pressure. These guys, you know, the pit crew's not been in this position any more than Rudiman has. So the whole team is in this position. and they all kind of rose to the occasion. Shout out to the pit crew on that stop.
Talk about scary moments. Rudiman trying to put Regan Smith a lap down, and Smith touches the wall.
That's you don't want to see that. You know what I mean?
No, you don't.
David's turning left. He's not paying any attention to what that 78 car is doing.
And Rudiman's now gone around Kurt Busch, who is now 2 laps down to the leader.
And you know, and Smith, he's running in the 19th spot.
Yeah.
So like I said, these guys are running as hard as they can to try to stay on that lead lap.
Some interesting names inside the top 10 tonight. Talk about Rudiman, talk about Carl Edwards. You know, Clint Boyer needs to be there. McMurray has done a solid job all night. And Denny Hamlin now just starting to surface. He's 8th in the late going.
Yeah. He's 8th with 10 laps to go, you know, and that's not characteristic. That's not a characteristic that you see from the Gibbs team. These guys are leading this thing with 8 or 10 laps to go. How sideways was that 0-0 car?
That's what I thought. It looked like he got a little sideways off the floor.
Which shows he's just still driving the wheels off of it.
He's still sideways right there.
He is still driving. He knows he's got to make some time because he knows they're telling him, just like Wally's been talking about Carl's there. They're telling him that, you know, you slip a little bit, Carl's going to be on you. And we've seen Carl, what he'll do on the last lap. He'll just run it in next to the wall and stand on it wide open to win a race.
The last time around, 1.8 seconds was the advantage for David Rudiman. It's up to 2.1 as you see the distance from first back to second, Carl Edwards.
It's going to be really, really hard to run that down unless you get stuck behind a slower car. I mean, you can lose a half a second in one corner if you get into some traffic and it doesn't work out for you. See how the 78 lays down for the 99. Rudiman didn't have it that easy.
Rudiman, and that's a perfect example of what Wally was talking about. How the leader laps the car. Well, now he's already a lap down. He's got nothing to lose by letting the second place guy go. And you see that so many times. And that's the most frustrating thing when you're leading and you're like, man, I need to get 4 cars in between me. And the 4 cars in between you and the second place guy, just pull over and let the second place guy go.
7 laps to go at Chicago. David Rudiman, not a big part of the conversation throughout the weekend here at Chicago. But he has been very good tonight. Started in the 7th position, stayed in the top 10 all evening long, and as the race lead, as he sees 6 laps to go. Heard the lap time being read off to David Rudiman.
6 to what got you there now. 6 to the line that got you there. Just keep running your line, bud.
And this is the busiest time for a guy like Rudiman. There's 1,000 things going through this guy's head right now.
5 to go at the line.
He's trying to focus. He's looking in the mirror. I'll guarantee you, he's looking in the mirror half the lap, trying to make sure that that 99 car doesn't get any bigger in the mirror than it is right now. And he's stretching it now. He's up to just over 2 seconds on Carl Edwards.
Clear by half a straightaway.
And that's what you want to hear. you want to hear from your spotter and your guys that, you know, you're leaving them. Plenty of room, no pressure.
And I'm going to tell you, these guys have worked hard. You look at Truex, you look at Rudiman, you look at Michael Waltrip Racing and what they've built. You know, and I think when they won that first race, you know, everybody said it's a rain-shortened race. He was a 14th or 15th place car. I don't care. It's still a W in the column. When it's all said and done.
Inside, 12 car inside, still there. Still there inside.
And I don't think a lot of people begrudged him that because he had run like this in the past. He just hadn't been able to close. But tonight these guys are closing.
But it's a better win when you earn it. Like, not that he didn't earn Charlotte, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, they worked for it, they earned it, and they beat everybody on the racetrack to the finish.
Yeah, he'll have 2 wins. He'll have the first win that he had at Charlotte. I won a rain-shortened race one time 100 years ago. And you'll have that win, but you also have what you consider this is a win.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of wins that David has put up in his career. No matter what he's driven, he's won races in it. And this is just vindication for him to say, hey, I am a Cup winner. I can do this.
Rudiman closing on more lap traffic. It will be 2 to go at the line. Larry?
Hey, guys, how about David Rudiman leading this race with 2 laps to go? Just about 2 weeks ago, he signed a 3-year contract extension with Michael Waltrip Racing. He's capping it off here tonight, boys.
Sometimes a little job security will give you exactly what you need when you head to the racetrack on the weekend. David Rudiman did not want to see a caution late in this race, and once he takes the white flag, it will be one more time around.
White flag right here. He's 30 back.
Man.
You say, how far was he back?
30 back.
I don't think he's quite 30 back. He's off about 29, but that's okay.
That's all right, man.
Tell him what you want to hear on the last lap.
Tell him whatever. This is where we need an in-car camera. I'd like to see the expression on his face right here, because he's got to just be so excited.
It's been 42 races since the aforementioned rain-shortened victory at Charlotte.
That's incredible.
David Rudiman wins at Chicago.
Great run by Edwards also, but incredible run by Rudiman.
Yeah, you see a lot of these guys needed these runs. Guys like Boyer and Kane, McMurray. I mean, these guys really needed good finishes, and they got them tonight.
Burton finishes the deal for the second week in a row, coming home in the top 10.
Good run from Menard, top 10. Nice run. Reagan got a good run. Yeah, I can't believe Kansas finished 13th. Every time I looked at the scoring board, he was way back there in the 20s, and that guy just kept plugging.
Just solid.
Let's hear from the winning crew chief, down to Phil Parsons.
Rodney Childers, how about win number 2? Now, this one had no rain involved. This was the full distance, 400 miles, baby.
I don't even know what to say, really. These guys did a hell of a job and brought a good car here, and I don't even know what to say.
You guys did a great job here. You had flawless pit work. Had a little bit of a scare when you talked about a vibration, but you told me you thought that was just low air pressure.
Yeah, it went away after a few laps, and TRD did a really good job. And sorry I'm so emotional, but I really wanted this for David. You know, he wanted to win one on his own, and ever since we won that deal at Charlotte, he really wanted to do it on his own. So, you know, this one's for him, and everybody at TRD did a really good job. It's nice to have Tom's on the car, everybody at Aaron's, and man, I don't know what to say. I'd like to say hey to my wife and kids at home.
Rodney, by the way, he didn't do it by himself, buddy.
No.
Back to you, Adam.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, man, he said, I don't know what to say. That said it all.
Yeah, no kidding.
That said it all. The quiver in his voice and the emotion said it all. That's what a win means, man. That's incredible.
Nothing like the emotion of a victory in the Sprint Cup Series. We'll celebrate with Rudiman when we return. You're watching NASCAR on TNT.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing from Chicago on TNT is brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. By Aflac. We've got you under our wing. By Sprint, proud sponsor of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. By McDonald's. I'm loving it. By Coca-Cola. Open a Coke and enjoy the race. And by Toyota.
Second Sprint Cup Series win in the career for David Rudiman, and I'm sure he's ready to celebrate. Let's go to Victory Lane and Ralph Shaheen.
I can tell you right now, this is going to be a very, very wet Victory Lane. Look at that. David is out of the car. We're going to wait for him to get down. Hey, congratulations. You know, you were really wet the last time you won, but that was because of rain. That's a great Gatorade shower there. You earned this one. How good does that feel?
Oh, man, first of all, I got to thank the fans and everybody at Michael Waltrip Racing. And everybody did such a great job today. Toyota Racing Development, having Tums on the car this weekend. It's just been a great weekend, man. I tell you, I don't even know what to say. It's probably the lamest burnout I've ever seen at this racetrack. I was tearing up pretty bad. So thank all my guys. Everybody did a great job. And, you know, no rain tonight. We earned this one. Nobody gave it to us, and that feels really good.
David, this team, Michael Waltrip Racing in general, really ran good tonight. Your teammate Martin Truex put on a good performance early on today. What is going on with this organization? What has made the difference and brought you guys to the front?
Oh, I mean, it's just every one of these guys you see behind you that work on this car, and the guys at the fab shop, you know, Toyota and Toyota Racing Development has given us some great horsepower tonight, just phenomenal horsepower. And it's just a total team effort, man. And along with Best Western, Tums, and Aaron's, man. Again, I heard so much stuff for winning a rain-shortened event. Everybody said we didn't earn it, and tonight, I don't know what they can say about this one.
So what do you want to tell all of them?
I don't know. They were watching the same thing I was. So, tonight we earned it, and it's a total team effort. Everybody at Michael Waltrip Racing did a phenomenal job, and man, I don't even know what to say. You think about these moments all your life, and you think about all the right things to say, but again, I got to thank the fans, Sprint and everybody involved. I'm just, man, I don't know. I'm about to cry. I tell you, it's awesome.
Well, say hello to your family. They're right here. Your dad's here. Buzzy Rudiman is in here with him, and Michael Waltrip's waiting on the phone to talk to him. It is going to be a crazy victory lane here tonight, Phil.
Ralph, I'm standing by with our third place finisher, Jeff Gordon. Jeff, another solid run for you tonight.
Yeah, no, I was real happy, to be able to get up there and take the lead at times. And, at times looked like our DuPont Chevy was the car to beat, but I knew David was really, really strong. And we got the lead that one time, and he ran us down. I knew that we were in a little bit of trouble. Made some adjustments on that last pit stop. Unfortunately, it didn't go the right way for us, so, we fell back to third. But we're trying some new and different things, trying to get to victory lane, trying to get ourselves ready for the chase. So, to come out of here with a third-place finish and have a solid car like that all night is something that we're all very happy with.
And I'm sure the guys made you aware of the fact that Kevin Harvick, our point leader, had trouble.
I had no idea. I saw that we got by him. Right now, it's more about the wins and those bonus points than anything else. We're pretty solid in the points, and I mean, you can never be solid enough, so happy to make some gains there. But it's all about the wins for us, until we get in that chase.
Enjoy your week off.
I'm looking forward to that. Can't wait to get home to Ingrid and Ella.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Another solid run for Jeff Gordon, but not the result he wanted. He wants victories. David Rudiman, the man that grabbed it here tonight. It may have been a sorry burnout, but the result's still the same. Nothing like the emotion from a man who hasn't been there in a while. Much, much more coming from Chicago when we return on TNT. It's all over in Chicago. David Rudiman gets Michael Waltrip his second Sprint Cup Series win as an owner. And now we take a look at where the other 42 drivers finished here tonight. Great effort for Carl Edwards, who gets his best run of the year, and Clint Bowyer does a nice job of helping his chase chances. David Reagan, 12th. Solid effort for him. In fact, 6 Ford drivers finishing inside the top 14, including Matt Kenseth and A.J. Allmendinger, who were 13th and 14th. Told you Denny Hamlin was in the top 10. Kyle Busch and Joey Logano 17th and 19th out of the Joe Gibbs camp. And Dale Jr. not getting it done the way he would have liked here tonight. There's Jimmy Johnson, led a number of laps early. Multiple issues for the 4-time champion. He ends up 25th. Harvick, the point leader, 34th tonight, and Greg Biffle right behind him. Matt Yoakum with a runner-up after the race.
What a momentum-building run for the 99 team and Carl Edwards. A lot of positives tonight for you and this team. What's the biggest?
The biggest positive is that we ran this well. My guys have been working hard. I'm proud of Bob Osborne, the guys at the shop, for keeping with it and working so hard. Aflac, Scott's, Kellogg's, Ford. I wanted to get a win so bad here for Ford. I think I made David. He might have been eating a Tums or two in there. We were coming on strong at the end. I just needed a couple more laps, and I honestly needed a couple more points so I could go up there and risk it real hard on the high side. I was real loose, and I just, I ran that last lap hard, and it was fast, and I wish I could have run all the laps like that, but Bob Osborne's right. It's a good points night, and we'll go forward. Hopefully we can be in the chase and have something for them later.
Solid night in Chicago, their second top 5 finish of 2010.
Clint Bowyer, you did exactly what you needed to do. You needed a good, solid run here to make some ground up in that chase.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt good. Our car was good all weekend long. Cheerios, Hamburger Helper Chevrolet. We unloaded a good car, and that's exactly what we got to do to get ourselves back in this chase hunt. And, I know there's still 7 races to go, but to get that monkey off your back, it seems like we have fast race cars and we can't get to finish. So to finally get to finish, the caution didn't come out. Nothing crazy happened at the end. It felt good.
How about your teammate Kevin Harvick had some sort of a fuel pump issue? Was that any concern for you guys?
I just found out. Nobody told me, so I guess it wasn't a concern to the boys up on the box anyway, but that's a bummer. You hate to see mechanical failures like that, but I tell you, the guys in the engine shop do a good job, and I'm sure they have the problem fixed.
All right, buddy. Good run.
Thank you, man.
So as Clint Boyer pointed out, a very solid points night here this evening as he jumps into the chase. Dale Earnhardt Jr. goes out, and still a lot to be unfolded over the course of the next 7 weeks as we get set for the chase.
Yeah, and we're going to be watching because we're not doing this anymore. This is our last race, and it was a great race. And you got to. There is a lot that'll play out over the next few weeks. When you look at it, to get down to the chase, these guys are grinding right now. You talk about Boyer, you talk about the 9 car of Kasey Kahne. These guys trying to get into the points, into that chase. They're just grinding. They got to knock these races out. This was a big race for a lot of people. It didn't really hurt the 29 car. It doesn't really hurt the 48 car. Those guys are in. They're not worried about it. They had bad races, but these other guys got to grind it out.
David Rudiman's got 10 bonus points, and he took a step closer to getting in the chase and being able to use them.
Well, like I said, I think it's real important for these guys because wins matter right now. And we talked about earlier, it's not so much about being in the chase, because it's one thing being in the chase, but winning the championship is tough, and a lot of these guys aren't at that level. So I think the win column is really important. These guys did a great job tonight. They earned it.
Yeah, they did. No doubt about it. A solid effort for David Rudiman, who gets the victory here tonight. And now we get more post-race reaction from pit road.
And what a night for our pole sitter, Jimmy McMurray. Now, we joked off Kramer at our interview back in the countdown to green. You said, watch, I'm going to be going to the top, and you certainly did. Judging by the right side, you spent a lot of time up top.
Yeah, I worked really hard to make our car work on the bottom and never really went to the top, but when they dropped the green flag, our car was just a lot tighter than it had been in all of practice. So really good run, though, for McDonald's Chevrolet. I thought the first half of the race we had one of the best cars, if not the best, us in the 48. And when Jimmy missed pit road and then got caught up in that accident, I thought we'd have a legitimate shot to win, but David Rudiman and Jeff Gordon came on there at the end, and it's cool to see David Rudiman win. He's a very deserving driver, and that will be a popular win, I think, among all the guys here in the garage.
You did say, what a nice win for a nice guy, but a great run for you and this team. And Bono, your crew chief, said, 7 more of these top 5 finishes, you're in the chase. This team continues to evolve and continues to improve as the season wears on.
Yeah, I mean, our cars certainly have enough speed to, I feel like we're a car that should be in the chase. We already have a win, and we seem to run well enough, but I'm going to let Bono worry about that, because every time I pay attention to points, something bad happens. So it's really cool to get good runs like this, especially with the McDonald's car here in Chicago. We had all kinds of McDonald's folks here tonight, so it was a good win. I got to say hi to Johnny Morris. He sent me a text message last night, and he's in Wyoming, and he sent it from a random cell number. So, hey, Johnny.
All right, 5th place finish tonight for Jimmy McMurray.
Pole sitter backed up a solid night. Unofficial standings after 19 races. Harvick still leads. Gordon, Johnson, Hamlin all in good position. Kurt Busch as well. Jeff Burton moves up a spot to 7th. Good for him. And you see Carl Edwards jumping up 2 positions to 10th, and there's Clint Boyer into the chase. And now the breaking point. Dale Earnhardt Jr. 15 points behind after entering this race inside the top 12.
Yeah, you look at Rudiman, he's sitting there in 15th, 96 points back, but you keep running like he ran tonight, you never know.
Who do you like? If you look below the red line with 7 races to go, what are you guys thinking? Is Dale Jr. the guy that makes the leap into the top 12?
I think right there what you have is what I like.
Yeah.
I mean, because these guys have been running decent. It hasn't been consistent, but Boyer's been there all year long with some bad luck. He should be a lot higher in the points. I think Mark and these guys, Mark and Dale, are just not showing that consistency.
And Rudiman said it. We've run, but we've not been consistent. Casey's not been consistent. Jamie just talking about, we got to win. We feel like we need to be there. We're just not consistent. And I think that's what it's going to be. The 12 that are there right now are the most solid 12 that we've had in the top 12. I truly believe that.
99 points, separating 12th from 16th after tonight's race. Let's go to Marty Snyder.
Well, Jimmy, that was probably a little harder to swallow because you might have had the best car tonight, I assume.
Yeah, well, I think we did when the sun was out. Something went on there late in the race where we got really tight. It could have been from the spin and going through the grass and doing some damage to the body. But I felt like the splitter was on the ground a ton after that. So I think something happened in that, or maybe something gave up in the front in the suspension, and it sacked out and was just dragging the track too bad. But hate the night ended that way. The slows ball was really good at the start of the race. But it's racing, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Any idea what happened with a 56? It looked like you guys might not even made contact.
Yeah, I followed Jeff into the corner and got tight being behind him, and I could hear that the 56 was trying to squeeze in there on the white line, and I just think the air being that close to me disrupted my car, and I felt it early in a slide, and I just couldn't catch it and got turned around there. So
Any relief in knowing how good this car was?
No, that makes it worse. To be honest with you, that makes it worse. But I'll head home to that little baby girl and my wife and come back in 2 weeks and be ready for the Brickyard.
Enjoy the week off.
Thank you.
Despite a tough night at the racetrack, we certainly wish Jimmie Johnson congratulations on the new baby at home, and certainly anxious to get back home to wife and daughter. So many people help paint the pictures each week for NASCAR on TNT. We thank all of our crew for their efforts. We also say thank you to Vice President of Production Howard Zalkowitz, Executive Producer Jeff Binky, our Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer Lenny Daniels, and the President of Turner Sports, David Levy. Coming up next, Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze in Point Break. Head to NASCAR.com right now for the NASCAR on TNT post-race show. Interviews, analysis, and more live right now on NASCAR.com. Thanks so much for watching NASCAR on TNT. It's been a fun-filled 6 weeks for our entire NASCAR on TNT crew. With Wally Dallenbach and Kyle Petty, I'm Adam Alexander. Congratulations to David Ruderman, and so long from Chicago.